on.
You can see the writing on the pavement. Young kids, they're growing up in basements. Online, a whole new generation. I'ma make mine, so you better go take it. Always, they need a new replacement. Decentralized, can't contain it. We're changing lives, yeah, upgrading. Call it suicide of the older generation.
What keeps you up at night, yeah? Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. What keeps you up at night, yeah? Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong.
It's too late to try to go contain it. A generation fueled by creation. We live lives on a small screen nation. We control the airwaves, no negotiation. I refuse to think we need saving. Something good will come from creation. And when we think that the world is too anxious, we'll adapt, evolve, survive, and save it.
What keeps you up at night, yeah? Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. What keeps you up at night, yeah? Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. Hey, oh yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong.
Good evening and welcome to Sovereign Soul Unchained Mind. Sunday night, February the 19th, 2023, or so they tell us. I'd like to welcome everybody to the show. My co-host tonight, Burn the Corporate Fiction. Ryan, how are you tonight?
I'm good, Sovereign. How you doing, man?
Just hanging in here, laughing at the world, man. I've been seeing so much crazy shit going on.
You ain't lying.
You know, we're going to get into discussing some stuff about the moon. There was one of my listeners was asking in chat in another stream last night that talking about that they'd like to have a discussion on that. And I was like, you know what, that makes a good topic. We'll talk about that. But I wanted to get into a couple of things here first. The stuff in East Palestine, Ohio, is getting stranger and stranger by the day, because now we find out, you'd sent me an article, Bern sent me an article, and I had seen a short video by Dabu77 that these farmers in East Palestine were all given by government agents wristbands, these like that monitor your bios a week before the train derailment. I mean, this thing is looking like a pre-planned or some shit almost by the day. I mean, we saw video from a warehouse 20 miles away that showed that this thing was already on fire. That means it traveled 20 miles on fire and nobody noticed, no sensors, nobody off the side of the tracks.
That had to be a controlled, like, charge explosive or something, man, because, yeah, just the whole thing's a setup from start to finish. You can tell from the movie they made a year ago about it,
right,
to exactly what you're about to get to here in a second. It's, if you can't see that this was intentional and is part of some sort of operation and agenda, guaranteed it's linked to Agenda 2030. and the international oligarchs. I watched this guy real quick. I just want to put this out there. I watched this guy I've been watching for years, Richie from Boston. I don't agree with everything he says, right? And sometimes he's out there, but he's, it's a cool stream and he's got a lot of good information. So I watched him and he was talking about this fourth generation warfare. He had done some interviews with like officers in the military. They're talking about fourth generation warfare is where it's a form of ultra guerrilla warfare where the nation being attacked does not even know that it's being attacked. Okay. And we are experiencing the fourth generation warfare right now. That's what these train derailments are. That's what everything actually in society, the weaponized propaganda on television,
supply chain breaking down
issues. Yeah, exactly. The food shortages. This is fourth generation warfare. It's conquering the enemy without even firing a shot, right?
Now they're attacking the water supply, if you think about it.
5 hours away from East Palestine, Ohio, I seen today, down in Kentucky, I forget the exact town, storm clouds had moved in from the westerly direction, Palestine, and northwesterly, whatever, came over. The dark storm clouds, apparently filled with this chemical because there's birds dropping dead in Kentucky, 5 hours away. Okay, where I'm at is 5 hours away from that place. In the other direction of the wind, thank God. I'm sorry for those people experiencing that situation right now. I would get the fuck away from there or anywhere near those chemicals. We don't even know what that shit's real effects on the body are.
And just think about when it gets dropped down, that which went into the air. Forget even just about what went in the water. When it rains, that shit's coming down with it. And then what's it do? It goes into the runoff. It drains down into the groundwater. They're making it impossible for us to be able to have any kind of a fresh water source. That's part of the plan. If there's no food and there's no water, you have no choice but to capitulate to get that type of thing.
Right.
Come to our little warm, cozy camp. You get a cot and a bowl of gruel with a spork every day, which would be a far sight better than what I think they're trying to make it be. I mean, let me play this thing you sent me here from
this right here ties the whole thing
botanically
together.
Blended, that botanically blended one.
Yeah,
that the one. Yeah.
No,
or the one we tracking.
No, the one with the old guy on the front of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they're both old guys, but one of them's in a Congress. Yeah.
No, not the Congress one. The other one.
Yeah, I could look at so many. It's hard for me to tell by the thumbnail.
No,
I mean, do my little.
And they got dumb thumbnails sometimes that are unrelated to the thing being shown. So,
let's see. Share screen. Microsoft Edge. Facebook. There we go. I'm surprised you'd even be able to see this on Facebook, to tell you the truth. But like they say, the veil's coming out. I hope that's big enough that people can see.
It's relatively small, but the audio is what we're primarily.
It says if it doesn't get any weirder than these, 3 months ago, East Palestine, Ohio, was at the center of a plot program to respond to emergency situations. They gave digital IDs for free to residents to track long-term health problems like difficulty breathing. So why are they doing this?
Needs to be. It's way ahead of the curve on a program to provide better treatment for anyone in the event of an emergency. I learned how it works and how it can help everyone in East Palestine.
My ID provides quick medical information for emergency responders. Arlene Chapman is the outreach coordinator for this project, and she's an EMT.
If they're in a situation where they can't tell us or they don't have any family around, this is something that would make my life easier.
My ID works by taking a camera phone and pointing it at a QR code. It provides valuable medical information such as allergies, breathing difficulties, or other conditions, so you get proper treatment and care.
If anybody sees the QR code, you'll be able to scan this and get the information. So it helps that person, not necessarily just here, but anywhere in the nation.
There are a few options for My ID: a bracelet, key fob, necklace, or attachment on your watch band. You can choose the one which fits your lifestyle best. That's up to you. Orders will start in January. The fire department has already collected $5,000 in donations to help.
that's our ultimate goal. We want to be able to give this for free to the citizens, provide them with that extra layer of care so that we can better treat them.
The offer includes Unity.
So you'd know if it worked or not. Wanting to believe some shit is an accident.
Palestine is known as.
So what are they doing? This is a month before. I think that guy's onto it. I really do.
The place to be. It's way ahead of the curve on a program.
Yeah, I mean, like that guy said, he says, "What are you doing? Did you do that so you could see if it worked?"
Right. No, I mean, yeah, he's got a good point. Obviously it's got to be related somehow. I mean, it's very vague. Like, that's a very vague general statement to say how it worked, because it's like, what is it intended for is what we would have to determine before we could figure out whether or not, or we know it's related. It has to be. I mean, they made the fucking movie because they have to show everybody what's about to happen in order to escape karmic repercussion. And then they show, right? And nobody, because it's a movie, nobody, obviously you don't think it's real. And because you don't say anything and they showed you, it's considered consent, and boom, they do it. And that's probably like the most open and blatant version of showing you what's going to happen, is actually making I think it won awards even, didn't it? The movie?
Yeah.
Like, it was supposed to be like a really, really good movie, right? Like, and it's the exact plot of what is playing out in Ohio. It's just very,
it's too much freaking coincidence.
There's no coincidence.
I
don't even, there's just really no such thing as coincidence, because even seemingly unrelated coincidences are synchronicity.
Well, how many other towns or municipalities like that ran a story like that place did, saying, "Oh, look, we're giving all these people these fucking QR code data."
Somebody in the chat just said that 8 other states are affected. I think it was Dreamyland said that 8 states are affected, man. That's heavy, dude. I wonder if we can figure out what are those states. Do you know, Dreamy, what states they are?
I would imagine, well, of course, Ohio, Kentucky, Michigan, West Virginia.
See, I don't know if it's Michigan, but I do want to find out.
I saw it within that radius. It said within what was the radius? It was all down into southeastern Michigan. I think you're just outside of it.
Somebody in the chat, sorry, I forgot who it was, said that they're in Kentucky, southern Kentucky. So, man, just be careful. I would, if at all possible, get away from there. You know what I mean? Like, anywhere near. But I'm about to see if I can find like a list or something. So,
well, and then if this stuff isn't good enough, they hit a new drug that's hitting the West Coast and moving its way all east. A new zombie drug where they're mixing animal tranquilizer with fentanyl, and these people are having their flesh is rotting off of their bodies and shit, man. Their fingers are falling off and all kinds of crazy shit.
So here I'm going to sound crazy when I say this to some people, but it's one of those things, truly, if you know, right? But there's a reason that JP Morgan had said millionaires do not use astrology, which this will tie into your topic tonight anyways, but millionaires do not use astrology. Billionaires do. And this is why they try to they don't allow people to know the real esoteric sciences that the ancients knew and lived by, right? They keep that knowledge hidden from us. And just like natural remedies and frequency healing and those types of things, they make you believe that it's hokey, right? But it's not at all. And
real quick, hold on. Sunkist is here. Cool. Hang tight, doll. I'm going to bring you up in just a few minutes, and we're going to get on this discussion. I got you. You with me, doll? All right, go ahead, Rye.
And astrologically, we're coming up on aspects that haven't been in this country since the Revolutionary War and the Great Depression, right? So, and it's supposed to all kick off in the beginning of March when Saturn enters Pisces. And now people are going to think that's crazy, but this is a huge, major major astrological conjunction in which, like, even the most optimistic professional astrologers are like, good luck, motherfucker, like it's about to get serious. Seriously. When you think about it, that it's an electromagnetic, everything in creation is electromagnetic vibrational frequency, right? So that's what, matter is ultimately energy at varying frequencies of vibration. So everything has a quantum effect on everything else. You know what I mean? Everything is interconnected with one another. And much like nodes on a radio dial, for instance, the positions of the celestial bodies, the luminaries, which are intelligences, they're the gods and goddesses of the old pantheons. And there's a reason why they give these attributes, okay, to each one. Like, for instance, the moon is Ceres, is one of the personifications of the moon. And the Ceres, like the goddess of grain and harvest, is basically the female version of Saturn. And when you look into the moon and how it's viewed by the ancients, the moon is considered the daughter of Saturn, right? And that's partially what I believe one of the moon's effects is it's what so like the sun shines forth vital light that gives us consciousness and spirit, and the moon shines forth the material light as the feminine, like the matter, and it controls matter in the same way they say that it affects the tides, whether it does or doesn't. That's why it's always associated. It's associated with water, and it's associated with what's underneath the water in a Neptunian way. The the moon is your subconscious, where the sun is your ego. That's why the one night I said we live in a holographic universe. That's what I meant. Was like the psyche, the mind, body, and spirit are a microcosm of the macrocosmic realm we live in, right? The divine man, if you will. And the moon is the subconscious. It's the habits, the emotions. It's what lies under the surface, right? And it's the negative polarity. As such, it has almost like a necrotic effect on the body. One could say it's the destructive polarity of the birth, death, say, where the sun causes to grow, right, or nourishes it, the moon pulls from. It causes aging. You know what I mean? So as things rise, the moon is what assists with the aging and decomposition. So in that way, she is the daughter of Saturn, who is the harvester, right? Saturn is the Grim Reaper, Father Time, the harvester. That's why the judges all wear the black Saturnian robe, for instance, because they're the Grim Reaper with us after summonsing you. But anyway, this major shift that's coming, all this stuff happening is all part of it. You know what I mean? So we're getting hit from every angle right now, and it's all going to come to a head soon. There's a reason they're doing all this. Wouldn't you say, Sovereign?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it points to, and all right, so real quick, before I get into this real quick, I want everybody in the chat to put in what the last book of the Holy Bible is. Just type what it is in the chat. Man. I just want to get a consensus to see if it's a memory thing or not. So just go ahead and put that in there. Yeah, I think that there is definitely a plan. And sometimes I wonder if they're not just using this book that I'm speaking of as a script in order to make us think we're in a different time. But for some reason, it looks like they have pulled out all the stops. Like they don't even care if you see their bullshit anymore or not. They don't even care. They're just going to do it. Okay, so the Tab is saying Revelations. Articudo's saying Revelation. There's a bunch of people saying Revelation. Now, I've always known it as Revelations.
Well, I thought it was Revelations, but once I looked at it, it recognized it as, it's Revelation, right? I think that's correct, but I think that misunderstanding comes from when we're referring to it as like a series of passages in our minds. So we automatically pluralize it.
Real quick, there is we got to see some residue last night. of the Mandela effect.
Right. I mean, I know what you meant, but a residue
Okay.
of.
Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd. Okay. Apparently now it's the Dark Side of the Moon. But when you look, that's what it comes up as, the Dark Side of the Moon. But OTW News had an old vinyl copy, and it just says Dark Side of the Moon on it. There is no the on there. So that was pretty cool. She was like, dude, we got residue. I got residue right here. I said, keep your eye. No, wait, well, hold on a second. I forget how that worked. I'll have to go back and watch it. See, this is the thing about these things. It's like, it'll go, wait, hold on. Was it this way? Or, it'll start to confuse me. I've got Vavel Fungui. I don't know who that is. Tell you what we'll do real quick is I'll do this and we'll go ahead and wait a second. Is that Eric? That is Eric. Okay. Just making sure that it isn't one of the goofies. What's going on, Eric?
What's going on?
I'm on my phone. I'm not getting alerts on anybody, man. I'm so shadow banned. Like I don't even get Paul or you or nobody anymore. It's like,
dude, I don't either, man. It's like I have to look, and then about a half hour to 40 minutes into somebody's thing or whatever, I've already been watching it, and then I'll get an alert about it.
Oh yeah, whatever social credit system that's about to be unveiled, we're all hit. Everybody,
Yeah.
You guys in the chat, you're all fucked.
I will be a poor motherfucker, man.
Right.
Yeah, here's OTW said here. The album says The Dark Side of the Moon, and the residue says Dark Side of the Moon. So that's the weird shit. Even his album at home changed. That's pretty crazy.
See, I feel like I can't really speak on that one. You would definitely know better than me. I love Pink Floyd.
Dude, we used to weed out poser Pink Floyd fans when I was in high school because me and Craig and Tom.
You just say poser?
Yeah.
You did say poser.
Nobody knows that term, Dave.
Okay, like somebody that wears a nostalgic band shirt, and you can walk up to them. They'll have a shirt on that says Nirvana, right? Some young kid, and I'm like, yeah, sure. Name 3 songs, and they don't know. They're just because it's cool.
Yeah,
right?
I'm getting really bad.
So we would see
audio.
people go, oh yeah, I love the Dark Side of the Moon, and I just like, no, it's just Dark Side. It's just Dark Side, bro.
Pink Floyd, I legitimately love Pink Floyd. But primarily only for The Wall and Dark Side of the Moon. But I've never had the album to remember if it is the or just Dark Side of the Moon. But
no, you came way after the age of vinyl. Way after the age of vinyl. By the time you came in, we were into CDs.
Mm-hmm.
And before that we had cassettes, but see, there was a special thing about vinyl album.
Shit,
because
CDs are old as shit now, man.
Yeah, to me, I mean, they're still new, but the thing about
remember burning CDs, nobody even knows about that.
I used to love to go to the record store, even if I couldn't afford the records, just to look at the album art. Because the covers of the albums were always so cool.
Yeah,
there was a lot of thought put into the artwork on it and shit.
No, I've seen a lot of vinyls. I was working on this old house one time, and we went in the attic, and there was boxes and boxes of old vinyl records, man. Like all the good ones, The Doors, The Who, Pink Floyd, like everything. But yeah, man, no, the I don't know that one well enough. There's other ones that you've told me about that are like, okay, that's Patty Cake.
So hold on a second.
Did you ever?
Yeah.
Do you know Patty Cake?
No, what's that?
You don't know the nursery rhyme?
Oh, the nursery rhyme. I thought it was a song.
Patty cake, baker's man. Okay. So when you get to the part where you go roll it, what's the next part? Do you know?
No, I always did it. Roll it and knead it and put it in a pan.
Well, it's supposed to be roll it, pat it, right? Mark it with a B. It's not. It's prick it. Everywhere you look at it says roll it, prick it. Yeah. I shit you not. Me and Michelle were like, because we were singing it to Alexis. Nah, it's prick it. Everywhere you look at it says roll it, prick it. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, shit, you're not. Me and Michelle were like, because we were singing it.
Yeah, I can remember doing that with my mom when I was little kid, when I was really little. And then she would always do this thing because it'd be sitting on the bed, and she'd do that with me. And then when she'd do the last one, she'd purposely push me over, and I'd laugh crazy, like, because I loved it, you know.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, it's just changed everywhere.
Yeah, there's so much. There's so much. Before we get too much more into this, the moon and the luminaries and stuff, because I really want to here. I'm waiting for Sunkist to hit the thing. No, it was just Sunkist audio. I just want you to keep in mind about this story we just had. This is how they think, how dumb you are. Okay, so we just had this thing about the Chinese balloon, right? And that thing that was hanging from it, they described it as being as big as 3 fucking school buses, right? Okay. Now I want you to keep in mind, we saw what they said was them shooting down the balloon, right? So they shot a Sidewinder missile that merely popped the balloon. It didn't explode, which means that the missile continued going. Where did it go? Nobody even cares or asks about that, right? But this is what I wanted to show you.
That's a good question.
This right here.
Hey, Ryan.
Aired a little while ago on, what's the matter, Eric?
What's up, man?
No, I just, world's getting weird, and
oh yeah,
I got a federal judge yelling at me because he went batshit crazy because I said I have law enforcement because they want me to do a psych eval, and I said, well, you need probable cause, and I did a Zoom where I had a sheriff department behind me, and the judge went batshit crazy because I said, well, I got law enforcement behind me. He said, is that a threat? And I'm like, no, I'm speaking about the law.
Mm-hmm.
This is a federal judge.
It don't mean nothing.
It doesn't mean anything.
Really, it doesn't mean anything.
He went batshit crazy when I said I have law enforcement behind me.
It means your charges are serious. What are you charged with?
Misdemeanors.
Federal misdemeanors?
Yeah, I've had
that. Yeah, there's no such thing, by the way. But anyway.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm like, so yeah, that's
anyway.
weird.
So y'all
are you taking it? Did you take it?
This guy's good. This guy's good. I love Blinken.
So this is the U.S. Secretary of State, and he's gonna.
Why is it so dark? What's with the darkness?
Yeah, ain't that something? I don't know. What was with that red Darth Vader shit that Biden gave with that speech at night?
With those fake Marines?
Yeah. But listen to what this guy says now. Listen to what he says. This is so backwards.
But what I can also tell you is this was an opportunity to speak very clearly and very directly about the fact that China sent a surveillance balloon over our territory, violating our sovereignty, violating international law. And I told him quite simply that that was unacceptable and can never happen again.
Wait, told who?
China offering no...
What?
I told him.
Yeah.
Him.
Yeah.
Well, you forgot to mention, and I unfriended him on Facebook too. The U.S. responded today by blocking China on Facebook.
Oh my God! What is that? It's like a big ball of.
I don't know.
Saran wrap. What the fuck is this shit?
Apology for its spy flight, as the Biden administration says the recovery for debris is over, and officially ends the search for 2 unidentified objects shot down over Alaska and Lake Huron.
Couldn't find them.
Joining us now with reaction is retired Air Force Lieutenant General Richard Newton. General, great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Now listen to this propaganda shit.
We were just talking, and I said to you, and I'd love for you to fill me in and educate me on this. I find it unbelievable. Unbelievable that we would shoot something that we don't know what it is, and unbelievable that we can't find the debris.
Well, it is unbelievable. But
unbelievable.
The challenge is in the shoot downs of the last 3 objects over Alaska, Yukon, and now Lake Huron. The objects were so small in such a remote location, it will likely be virtually impossible, maybe futile, to even find the objects. But the larger picture here is the fact that we have a domain.
You mean to tell me that they can find a half a gram of uranium stuffed up an Arab's ass in an airport in Tel Aviv from a satellite, but they can't find a fucking thing that was as big as a goddamn minivan that they shot down? Really? That's it. Oh, okay, sure.
You know what? You listen. The SEC got my fucking. I'm even done. I'm burning all the paper in my house. It doesn't do any good, guys, anymore. If this is where we're at, I mean, Ryan, what do you think? I mean, this is beyond the pale.
Well, I seen a video of what they supposedly shot down, and it's weird, man. It's like a translucent. I took a screenshot while I was watching the video, somebody's cell phone video. I just sent it to you, Sovereign, and it's this weird, like translucent, malleable, floating thing. It's either some kind of weird technology we're not privy to, or it's just a fucking hologram of some.
Well, here's the other thing about the train stuff. Everybody's talking about blue beam and the Asian and the aliens coming. What if they're using blue beam with the smoke plumes?
I think a possibility is that they're using their blue beam technology. This is like a beta test, and not only is it an opportunity to test the technology, but it's a way to distract people, mislead people, distract people from other sensitive topics that are going on right now that nobody's talking about, that are of major importance. You know what I mean? The train derailment doesn't even really fall into that category anymore because it's circulating quite a bit on social media, and then it's just I don't watch the news, so I don't know if they're really covering it in the news yet. But it's gonna.
Wait! What the? Are those bleachers with fake colors? What the fuck is behind these people? Is that supposed to be a fucking state? What is this background?
I have no idea.
It's like it's a racetrack.
It's there to pick it. Well, we're talking about competition and shit too. See, it's going to seed that in the head. This guy right here, basically the gist of it is, well, in any case, we know it's from China and we need to admonish them and we need to do something about it.
Do you think they chose racing because it's Fox and they know that it's conservative white people primarily watching it? So
I want to know what the fake.
Hold on. So they chose NASCAR because they know that NASCAR appeals to those specific people, and they put up a racetrack behind them because it's Fox News, right? So you got the Ricky Bobbies everywhere watching this shit.
Dude, right here where I live, there people have Dale Earnhardt collector's plates that they cherish. You wouldn't be able to give them enough money to get it from them.
That's what I'm saying. Down south, man. They love some NASCAR. They love that shit. Everybody watches that shit.
Man, Central New York, man. My redneck white family, they used to love driving down to Nashville and shit from New York. Back in the 80s.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard like a NASCAR race is cool to go to. Like, I've heard it's a lot of fun. I'm not knocking it, but it's just funny that they chose that specifically.
Damn it.
Make sure you feed that baby, Sonny. Don't come up here.
This is the thing. Yeah, that looks like that. Ryan, what you just sent me looks a lot like. I'm going to download it and then bring it up that way, and then I can zoom in on it a little bit. There we go. Yeah, this is. Shit. Window. There we go. I confuse myself sometimes. That thing. Now that does look like one of the many balloons like they launch from Antarctica with these satelloons on them. Because what they do is that when they get them, they start to go up and they almost look like they're only half inflated. They're real like wiggly looking and shit, right? But as they go up, that gas expands inside the balloon. And they've got these things as big as the freaking Astrodome made out of that material like that when they're up at 100,000 feet, you ain't going to see it. You just ain't going to see it.
What the hell is that?
That's definitely, that looks to me like a balloon. That looks like, see this down here? I don't know. Yeah, my cursor. This right here looks like the payload right here, but this looks a lot like, see these ridges in it? Those expansion ridges?
Here's the thing you can't see, but if you look up a video of this thing, it like changes form. Like that's why some people say they see a cylindrical object, and then it goes back to a ball, and then it goes back.
They're really malleable. They have to be, or that'll rip apart in the high winds. When they get up, you got to understand we got winds above the Earth that if the Earth was rotating, these winds are actually outrunning the speed of the Earth.
So what is the purpose of that thing?
But no, what are they calling it? There's a term they're putting out there. They're calling it a tic tac or something, or like a
Looks like a soda can.
Yeah, it does, don't it? No, I'll tell you what. This is what there are. There are satellites. My theory is this: something went snafu. It got too low. People saw it. They scrambled for something. Why not use China? Right?
Well, I think
I would have been more creative. I would have made a more likely suspect that would have used a balloon rather than China. I mean, anybody with two brain cells that aren't fighting each other would go, oh, wait a second. China's a satellite capable country, supposedly, and they have their own space station. Why would they need a damn balloon? Right?
Well,
so
China
North Korea, I could buy that out of.
Wait,
China owns TikTok. They don't need to use a fucking spy balloon or a satellite or anything. They got the back door into like 80% of the United States fucking cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So what are they what do they look like floating a fucking balloon over here trying to spy on us?
They're not. It's ours.
No.
If they'd have shot it down over land, somebody would have found wreckage, or somebody would have got pictures, and they would have seen it. It clearly said NASA or U.S. Army or U.S. Air Force or something on the side of it.
And it all would have been in English, and pretty much English.
Yep.
Oh yeah, so, for sure.
That's why they waited till it was over water. They weren't worried about debris falling on anybody. They never give a shit about that.
It's all a distraction, no matter what it is. That's the truth of it. Because if it's actually something like that for real, they don't put it in the news. It doesn't matter who's seen it. You know what I mean? Men in black show up and scrub everybody. Fucking get all the people's, cell phones, laptops, whatever they got with the information on, it's gone. And then boom. That shit happens all the time out in like Nevada and fucking California and those types of places. People who have captured stuff. And these dudes in black suits just show up and fucking take all their shit and leave.
Yeah, once again, if you recall, 1947, supposedly a UFO was shot down at Roswell, New Mexico, or it crashed rather. I've been there to Roswell. They got a cool museum. I'll have to upload my video from going there and some of my pictures. But it was really so. One of the things that they were talking about was that they were just starting to fuck around with more long range radar, with a new kind of radar, and something about that is what caused it to come down. But then the next day, what was the cover story? A balloon.
Yeah, that's there.
Right. It was, and everybody's like, "Come on, no way!" Right? This thing wasn't moving like a balloon. Balloons don't do that. Da 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 da. Right. So, I think there again, like you said, it's but more like Russian nesting dolls, distraction within distraction within distraction.
You know who's done some good work?
Yeah. There's young people do something with a balloon. It's called a whippet. Dave might know what I'm talking about.
I do. Nitrous oxide.
There's one guy who did some good work on those instances where people have actually been witness or gotten some evidence of, whatever it is the government's working for. And his name's Jim. I think it's Jim Mars, isn't it? The guy he's the journalist that wrote those tons of books after investigating various UFO sightings and cover-ups. Yeah. And he's got all the evidence in there. There's been congressional hearings on this shit. You know what I mean? And all this stuff is just like the hearing I sent you. All this stuff is swept under the rug.
Dave,
hold on, you guys. Let me just welcome. I got two people have come up here on the panel. And they've been patiently waiting to say at least hello or whatever, and then we're going to get into this talk about the vibrations of these luminaries. Ryan is very, very well informed about this stuff, and I think it's make for some interesting conversation. I'd like to welcome Sunkist. How are you doing, sweetheart?
Hi, much love, Sovereign. Hi, everybody.
Good to see you.
How you doing?
And we got Christos Deliopolis. I always say his name like Italian. I think it sounds cool. So how you doing tonight, Christos?
Yeah, that's right. You gotta say it some type of way. That's for sure.
Yeah, It rolls so nice that way. Christos Diliopolis.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, first thing I want to say is, Eric, I'm glad you're finally coming clean as being a Chinese communist agent, and that you're finally owning up to it, man. I really appreciate that. I knew from the get-go that something was sketchy, so I'm just glad that you're being straight up about it now. And yeah, I'm very interested in the topic of tonight.
Well, what we started out with talking about, I just wanted to get into some of this because I caught that little bit of propaganda. It just blew me away. I was like, are they really floating this? Are they really floating this? Are people buying it? You know, and I too, Eric, I wondered about the stadium too, because we know that the NFL and the DOD have a contract ever since 2001 where they have flyovers and they give tickets to military personnel and they'll have them sitting in groups. And it's funny because when you watch a touchdown happens and the crowd goes crazy and the camera pans over and then it'll go and zoom in on a group of soldiers. And it's like they're psychologically connecting that victory, that score with the United States military. And it's all part of a recruitment campaign.
High school football,
Mm-hmm.
growing up in the 80s, when I was a kid, I'm like, man, this is just to get people in the military.
Mm-hmm.
It's military.
Right. Yeah.
That's high school
it's
football.
terrible. They target the kids. It definitely is. But the thing about this moon, this is what gets me. La Luna. I was corrected by someone who speaks Spanish one time. I was trying my hand at it, and he spoke Spanish quite fluently. Of course, he was Hispanic. And I saw the moon, and I says, El Luna. He goes, no. He says, La Luna. What are you talking about? He says, the moon, she has a pussy. She's a female. She's a La Luna. And I says, oh. And then I said that kind of put me into the thing. I was like, no wonder it's Diana. It's Artemis. Who is Artemis? Artemis is the sister of the sun, Apollo, the female of divine of the masculine divine. You know, here's these two objects. They're the antithesis of each other in the sky. They have the opposite properties of one another, but they function together, producing the negative and the positive duality within this reality. And it seems to be tied to our cycle of rebirth. A woman's menstrual cycle is 28 days, just like the moon cycle. It's almost like what is the connection? And it's always been seen as a connection, as the goddesses of the moon, Diana, Artemis, what have you, many others are always known as fertility goddesses of rebirth. Why don't you give us a little bit on that? What you know, Ryan?
Some cultures view the moon as a receptacle for souls.
Soul receptacle.
Yeah, like a soul receptacle. Yeah, essentially. In like Greek mythology, the moon is represented by Persephone, Persephone. And
that's Greek, right?
Yeah, it's Greek.
Tell people who Persephone was.
Right. That's what I said in the Greek mythology. Yeah, it's Persephone. It's essentially, the moon represents the feminine divine. Okay. And everything that goes with the feminine divine, which is the negative polarity. And to clarify,
doesn't mean bad.
To clarify, so nobody misunderstands, I don't mean negative in the sense as in like bad or, you know, any kind of like derogatory connotation. Negative just means much in the same way of the negative and polarity of a battery, the flat end. And you notice the positive end has a nub because the battery is, again, a microcosmic example of polarity in the sense that I'm talking about. So in the same way that the battery has that positive end and a negative end, right? The moon is essentially a cathode, you know, in one sense, but also
you could view it in that hermetic sense right there, where everything has its own duality. Is you could say that, okay, you could say the moon is the negative, or you could say it's the less positive, or like how the sun is the positive, you could say it's the less negative. You see, because it's going to harbor the both to be, they can't function without one another.
Like as above, so below, and all that. Same thing, correct?
I think so. Go ahead, Ryan. Continue.
Well, like for instance, Yahweh is the Hebrew Canaanite moon god, essentially. And it's interesting when you start thinking about it in that sense. You look at esotericism and you have what is the essential underlying story of creation throughout every culture, right? Is there was the one, the inconceivable, the everything, the all, the omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent divinity, which must exist without question as an ultimate consciousness that is so vast and subtle, it's incomprehensible to us. The very intelligence that causes your heart to beat and the acorn to turn into a massive tree, right? It's that intelligence pervading everything. And then as it begins to manifest and descend into matter, it manifests as polarity initially. So the one divides into two opposite ends of this archetypal oneness. And that's going to be positive and negative. And then the positive and the negative reunite to create the third, which is the sun, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then from then is the four elements of creation brought into governance under the spirit, which is five, which is the microcosmic man, which is within the six, which is the macrocosmic man, which is hermaphroditic, right? And ultimately, that's the concept that underlies most religions, is that we're in the mind of the cosmic man. So when you think about the one dividing into two, okay, the male god, or the fact that the Hebrews and the Canaanites viewed Yahweh as the moon god, is ultimately representative of the reaper, El, the Elohim, right? So there you have the relationship to Siri, right? So I've often noticed that the moon has a necrotic influence on the body. So for instance, if you have an illness, you'll notice during the day it's not as severe as it becomes at night. Because once that cold moonlight comes out, that's that cathode, that negative polarity, right? The antithesis to life and growth that is necessary, right? And you know, in some ways beautiful, but it's the destructive force of creation.
It's kind of like how the what is that, the Shiva and Brahma, right? In the Hindu, they're both the same, of the one God, but one's creation and one's destruction.
Well, Brahman is
Isn't
like
that, if I got the right guys, or
the Brahman is like the all, and then there's Vishnu and Shiva.
Vishnu. That's the one I'm thinking of.
And Shiva, yeah.
Anyone ever tell you you have a voice for ASMR, Ryan?
For what?
ASMR.
What's ASMR?
You guys never heard of that? Where people do like those tapping noises, or people have a certain sound to their voice that people like people fall asleep to different.
Oh yeah, it is NPR. NPR voice. An NPR tone. NPR tone. There you go.
No, but what?
I don't want to compare him to NPR, but yeah, I guess.
Well, I appreciate that. I think, right. So
hold on, before we go on any further, Christos, was there anything else that was negative that you wanted to say to anybody before we continue? That's it.
Well, hold on. No, I literally wasn't. Wait, did you say I wasn't saying anything negative? Like, that was a legitimate thing. Like, people have voices, like ASMR type voices that sound
it's called
elegant.
NLP. It's neuro linguistic. I don't know what I don't know what term you're using. It's called NLP. It's called NPR NLP. But anyway, go ahead.
Let's go. Anyway, so I know that there's a lot of connection between that, and as far as I know, that like the old folks around here that have been doing their own gardening, they grew up on farms as kids and stuff. They go by the moon phase when they plant their potatoes, because if you don't do it right, they won't grow. It's really amazing, and it's like they go by. I think
do that too.
New moon. Don't they go by? I'm sorry, Sunkist.
I do that too with my potatoes. I go by the moon.
It's a new moon. It's when you plant, isn't it, Sunkist? If I'm not mistaken. But it'll putrefy me. I said you plant the potatoes during a new moon, right?
New moon, yes.
Yeah. Because then it gives it a chance to grow. That makes sense.
To grow. Yeah.
Well,
So,
summer's
man, I'm loving what you're saying. What's your name again? I'm so sorry.
mine.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Ryan.
Ryan. Okay.
So did you guys think I was being insulting or something? I literally wasn't.
I kind of took it that way. I mean, because you
I
came
did.
on and went slamming
I
at
did.
Eric, and I know that everybody other places have been slamming at Eric, and I'm really trying to just keep the negativity down. If you weren't, that's fine. I mean,
I thought it was a compliment.
Okay.
Yeah. No. Thank you, man. But
no worries, Christos.
So, anyways, it represents the subconscious, right? And an interesting thing is, and like I said, the divine feminine as being the negative polarity, right? Which is also the destructive force of nature, right? Because it's the drawing away.
That's why women will ruin your life, Ryan.
No, but it's not like that. What I'm saying is it's the drawing away. So it's the necessary drawing away that causes manifestation, the eternal now, the present. The present is the incessant clashing of these two forces from within your mind and matter and everything, the incessant interplay between these two, the negative polarity drawing and the positive polarity giving. You see what I mean? And it's the oscillation between the two, right? The two polarities. That's the vibrational frequency of creation, essentially. So when you look at the moon, it's the divine feminine. In the earliest cultures, some researchers say that the earliest cultures were moon worshippers because they worship the Mother Earth, which nurtured and gave to them, and then they looked to the moon as a symbol of the feminine divine, infertility, reproduction, so
wait, Ryan, just the Hebrew calendar is, what is it, solar or lunar based?
It's lunar. Yeah.
Lunar. Yep.
And what's about the Chinese calendar?
Lunar.
There you go.
Yeah, everybody.
Ethiopian.
Our Western culture has been dominated by sun worship. It really has, and primarily through our favorite friends in the Vatican, the Catholic Church.
When you look back through history, even the story like in Nordic mythology of the Aesir and the Vanir, right? I think that's how you say it, Vanir, is the story between essentially the sun and moon beings, right? The beings of the two polarities. If you look in the Hindu Vedas, they talk about the two different, like asuras. They've got different classes of beings that all play different roles. And it's funny because descending through the hierarchy of creation, there are orders of beings that we would consider, like, to us, their power, influence, and consciousness is so much more vast than we can possibly comprehend, that they would seem to us to be gods, right? And they exist outside of this dimension. And then you have the celestial bodies, the planetary consciousnesses within this realm, and it's basically their rays coming together like basically a rainbow focusing into one, object and coloring it with creation. So like in each planetary body, each celestial being has its set of influences on everything from the microcosm to the macrocosm, from your personal life to world events on the world stage, right? These planetary influences affect. And these are the gods of the ancient pantheons. When you read mythologies or watch like old movies about that time, and they're talking about the gods. And
So there's, you got the Titans and the Olympians, which are kind of, can you cover that? Because you got the Titans.
Right, but it's
see, with the luminaries, if we look at what they call planets today, and for older times they called wandering stars, those that are not fixed within constellations, they are all named after these various gods. You've got of course Mercury, Venus, and what I think is interesting too, it's been speculated that that Venus might even be the moon of like an outer system beyond Antarctica type thing. It's a whole nother deal. it has its phases like that. But the thing that gets me about this thing, and I'm just going to say this right out, ever since I was a little kid, the moon has fascinated the shit out of me in this sense. When I sit there and look at it, and it never ceases to amaze me. And I'm just, the whole feeling I get about it is that should not be there. I'm like, there's that, something is not real about that. You know, something in my mind just tells me that. I see it at these different sizes all the time, great magnitudes at sometimes it's real small. And, you know, the parts that are eclipsed out, I'm trying to figure out, why do I see shit through that? This thing seems to be its own source of light. It couldn't be reflected sunlight, because if it were, you would get a slight register at least on a solar panel, but you don't. So what the hell? So I'm, and it seems to be tied, I think, to our cycle of rebirth and maybe even death. I don't know if anybody really pays attention, if there's any stats on the amount of deaths during certain moon phases.
Well, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of how the what I mean by the planetary frequencies basically concentrate and animate this creation, as far as the way it plays out through time, right? So Saturn kind of rules this whole ring. That's why he's considered the Lord of the Rings, but they all basically are like the fates and control the destinies, right? So they each have their own set of things, but they also have their microcosmic manifestation in man. So one example of this is Mercury is associated with thought, communication, right? Intellect, education, right? Well, when you think about that, well, Hermes or Mercury is Hermes, which is also Thoth, the Egyptian scribe god, right? Which he has a ton of associations right there. He's one of the most coveted aspects of the planetary system, right? The whole setup, the astrological system. Well, the way he manifests inside the microcosmic man is your thought, right? So your thought is Mercury. Like, that's the element of that attribute. That planetary ray manifests as your thought, right? Because it's like quicksilver, right? And it carries messages, conveys. You see what I mean? So that planetary, and that's, so the moon governs your emotions and your subconscious. Okay.
Well, I think that's evident too, as we see behavioral manifestations during certain moon cycles.
Well, wait.
I can definitely feel, I feel more agitated, and I'm more irritable, and I'll look and see, oh, it's a full moon, and it just really seems to be quite strange, you know. And there's no other explanation for it. It's not like I've programmed myself to go, oh, look, it's a full moon, I should feel this way. It's like I start feeling that way, and I take a look at my calendar or whatever and look at the moon cycle and go, well, that makes sense. Okay. You know,
when you talk about Mercury, well, Mercury is what we use to measure what? Temperance.
Right.
Which also goes to temperance, behavior. So
Right.
Mercury is also
balance.
Where did Sunkist go?
Hey, that was good, Eric. That was really good, actually.
Which actually,
that's a good connection, man.
It's the unity like this. Listen, it's the unity between thought and love, right? That creates the actual symbol of balance. The true symbol of balance is the byproduct of Hermes and Aphrodite, and it's actually the Greek god Hermaphrodite, representing the balance, the dual-sexed balance, right? Which is not meant to be misinterpreted in any type of way to go mutilate yourself, because it doesn't mean literally, right? It means the balance within your mind between the masculine and feminine aspects, the subconscious and the ego, are in alignment, okay? Because the subconscious is the feminine aspect of your ego. When we think of feminine and the negative polarity, we think of receptive and fertile, right? So literally your subconscious is where the seeds of your future thoughts are planted. Okay. And what you think goes into your subconscious, and it gets planted as seeds. What you focus on becomes the seeds in your subconscious. And also what you don't realize slips into your subconscious. It gets planted in the same, but it represents the feminine aspect because it's the soil in which seeds are planted. And it's also the dark, murky depths underneath the water to which you can't see, right? That lies beneath your perception of past traumas and experiences and habits and yearnings that we are just regularly disconnected from, So when you achieve that harmony, that it represents wisdom. So an interesting thing is the Native Americans considered that, they called that Wicate, and it meant wise one, was one who had gotten their masculine and feminine aspects in harmony.
Well, I want to get some thoughts on this by Sunkist here in a minute. I want to also put into this idea too, that since you brought up Native Americans, I'm thinking it's right up there around Michigan and the Ontario area. I forget which tribe it is, but most of these natives are known because they don't have this natural fear of heights that most people do. And so consequently, they are steel workers. And it's really a great benefit for these people and for their tribe that they are steel workers. And there was a great collapse of a bridge they were working on one time. I think it was over the Niagara River. And it killed a bunch of the men from the tribe. And so the women in the council, they had a meeting and decided that they were going to have some kind of a tribal law that only a certain percentage of their men were allowed to work on any one project at any one time for that. And I thought that was interesting, that it was left to the council of the women to decide that, but still was sanctified by the council run by men. It was almost like, this is our recommendation, and that was taken seriously. And I think that's kind of like how shit's supposed to work, man. What do you think, Sunkist?
Oh, I have to agree. And for me, I always think of the moon as the divine feminine. It's a feminine energy, and her counterpart is the sun. And you were correct with how it has to do with, the woman's monthly cycle and the flow, and even the ocean waters, even the waters are feminine, and they all play a role in that. And so in a lot of different cultures, non-Western cultures, and I can say this because my dad is from West Africa, Sierra Leone, women are more, there's more of a respect, per se, for the voice of a woman, for the voice of mother. And in my opinion, I think that's what's kind of wrong. A big part of what's wrong in our society is we're imbalanced, and we have too much masculine energy. We have, and we shut out the feminine aspect of creation. And for me, my own experience with the moon, I'm a Cancer. And so my ruling planet is the moon. I'm a water sign. I've been drawn to water. I'm really drawn to water. I'm really drawn to the moon. And for me, it's never been a negative thing. Matter of fact, I sit moon, like tomorrow, I think, tomorrow. What's tomorrow? The 20th?
Yes.
Yes, we have a new moon coming, and on the full moons and new moons, I sit out, mason jars, and I do moon water, and I charge it with the moon and stuff like that. So I just feel that the way that society is treating kind of the feminine aspect of itself, it's a reflection to me of how they view the moon. And so how they view the moon is something that's mysterious and, maybe shouldn't be here, or maybe there's a lot of things that I don't understand about where we are. And I don't know where we are. I don't know what exactly we're doing here. We're all trying to figure that out. But I do know when people are like, oh, the moon is fake or this is fake. Well, technically everything is fake. And because if we're eternal beings, non-physical beings to begin with, we had to create, or something had to create something physical for us to be in. So we're not in our original placement. So it's all fake, if you want to get technical. And so I feel like the moon gets, I don't know. I just feel like the moon is misrepresented and misunderstood a lot in the Western culture. And, there are certain things, certain plants that have to grow only by moonlight. And just like you guys were saying earlier, they work together. They are the moon and the sun, they're divine counterparts, and one can't function without the other. And you have the greater light of the sun, but you have the softer light of the moon, the feminine aspect. Men are the masculine is, harder. They're the go-getters, they're the power, and then you need the softer side. You need the softer light. You can't stare. Well, supposedly, I sun gaze, but supposedly you can't just at certain times stare directly at the sun for a certain amount of times, but then you come out and you can stare at the soft light of the moon. It kind of reminds me of how, a mother and a father, as far as discipline, sometimes even with my son, it's like the sound of his dad's voice can make him stop. But I'm like, I told you, I said, okay, this is my last time.
When I was a kid, Sunkist, when I was a kid, mom would take care of shit during the day and everything. But if I fucked up really bad and I got the wait till your father came home, dude, you knew what time dad got home, and you was dreading that period of time because you knew that after mom gave him his welcome home kiss, she was going to tell him the shit you did, and he was going to deal with it, and it wasn't going to be as nice as mom did. I mean, you are absolutely on point with that.
It really is. And even with my son, even with my dad, if I would be there with my dad, and I'm like, it'll take me 2 or 3 times saying something, and then my dad gets up and he's like, and then my son is like, okay, I'm gonna stop. It's like that energy, and not taken away from mama, because we are, nurturing. We have that more softer energy, and that's how we balance off. And I wanted to get, because I loved, Ryan, what you were talking about, the subconscious, and the role the feminine part of the brain plays. And that's what I wanted to ask you about last night, Sovereign, how you were going deep in that. It was so wonderful and beautiful, because you made such a wonderful point that I often say, and it starts with people who talk about not using your imagination, or your imagination is not good. First of all, they're teaching that to our children in these school systems, not to use their imaginations. You have parents who stop these children, their imaginative play. They're 2, 3 years old, and you should be encouraging them, imaginative play. I was out here pretending that chickens were raptors with my son, and we were hunting, holding a guitar, but that was him, and we were being quiet. We should be encouraging our children to utilize that, because later on in life, it's our subconscious mind, it's our imagination. I don't know if have you ever heard of Neville Goddard?
No, I don't.
Sovereign?
I don't believe I have.
Oh my goodness. Him and Dr. Joseph Murphy, I'm going to stick with Neville for right now. He really talks about manifestation and the power of the subconscious mind, and imagination. Matter of fact, Neville equates the imagination to be God, and that that's where creation starts. And we all know that when we have thoughts, or when we're thinking about things, or we're going to build something, it all starts in our mind. It all starts in our imagination. And then we begin to bring forth in the physical what we've already created in our minds, And so Neville talks about that, and I don't know, it's really big, and not using your imagination is very
everything is provided. Okay, if you think about it, everything is provided. Imagination isn't needed. I mean, even as a kid reading a book, and today, if you read a book, you have to use your imagination to build the picture. I mean, you will build a look of your own to a character, the main character in the book, that type of thing. But it's gotten to a point where everything is provided. You don't have to imagine it. It's a video. Right. You have something on TikTok or whatever else. And it's gotten to the point where now, if you were to tell a kid, say, purple spotted cow with pink horns, it would confuse the shit out of them, because they're unable to imagine what you just said. Unless you showed them a picture of what you're saying, they won't get it. If it's not, so you're right. They have stifled the creative side of the mind, the right side of the mind, the God side of the mind, to the left linear logical side of the mind. And they do this early. They put you in the room with the grid-like pattern for the desks. All the kids are sitting in an alphabetical order most times. And you respond to a bell that rings on a certain minute at a certain time. Everything is just organized, based, rule following, linear thinking. And anything
military
outside the
style.
right, if you see what they've done over the time, oh, we don't get enough money. We're not getting enough money. We have to cut the extracurricular. We have to cut art class. We have to cut band class. We have to cut choir. We have to cut the art fund. Because after all, learning fake shit in history is much more important. You know, but that's what they do. And you see that, oh, we just can't afford that stuff.
Well, when you talk about like the moon being the divine feminine, okay, so it's important like to understand that the moon, so God in God's totality is neither masculine nor feminine, because God is all, everything is both, right?
Yeah.
And then
the energies aren't gender based. Yes.
At the first level of creation, ultimately, the two universal energies, polarities, is the positive, negative, the masculine, the male, female, masculine, feminine energies, negative, positive polarity, right? And so when we in order to overcome the influences or master the influences of these aspects of ourselves and in our environment, we have to learn the lesson of them. So when you take the negative feminine polarity to the field of morality, okay, you have the active life-giving force, which is good, and then you have the drawing away destructive force, which is considered evil, right? So we have to learn the lesson of this, right? And we look to the Bible. It says, what is it? Where do we get the term evil? It's Adam and Eve, right? So here you have the masculine and feminine polarities, okay? And what does Eve, the moon representing Eve, what does Eve represent? Okay, Eve represents temptation. She was tempted. She's temptation. The serpent entered Eve, essentially represents temptation, desire. Okay. So desire is what creates. Okay. It's the care, it's the give, but ungoverned or unbalanced desire becomes evil. And that's ultimately what it is. And we have to look at it's basically neglecting the aspect of yourself that needs, okay, that cares. We try so hard to escape ourselves on a regular basis. And that feminine, that divine feminine that's represented by the subconscious, it needs, it cares. So it starts to affect you. That what it controls is your moods, which is what is represented by the ocean. And when they say like the moon governs the tides, it's that subconscious governs your emotional energy without you even realizing, and ultimately dictates what you focus your energy on. So only by a balance between the two, you have to have that desire, that drawing, that pulling from you. That's what that is, that drawing, that desire. That's the negative polarity in a moral aspect, right?
Hey, Brian, where does the expression "the tides that bind"?
Right.
Is that a song, or where's that? Is that biblical? You know, the tides that bind.
It is funny, yeah.
Where's that?
No, that's ties that bind. It's not tides. Ties.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
The ties that.
Yeah. Christos, you've been very quiet. What's up, brother? What do you think on the subject so far? Do you have anything to add?
Am I coming through clear?
Yeah, man.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm just delivering DoorDashes right now, listening in.
Oh, okay, cool. I just didn't know if maybe you hadn't got a chance to chime in or whatever, because this is a pretty interesting subject.
It definitely is. I do find it interesting how, like Judaism is basically a lunar religion, and then Christianity is a solar. and just how we see these basic elements of negative, positive, male, feminine energies within everything. But that's something I've been meaning to look into more, is the different religions throughout history, or cults that were based around the sun versus based around the moon. And it it is interesting as well how there would probably be more reverence for the maternal energy within the lunar cults or religions, as opposed to the solar. And
Well,
even there's these symbolic elements everywhere within nature. So the sun and its rays, and how the rays extend outward from the sun. It's almost like that phallic imagery. The rays slash the singular ray that you see kind of draw down from the sun, almost like a part of a grandfather clock.
Like a pendulum. Yeah.
Yeah. There's even that outward projecting exterior phallic symbolism and energy that we and imagery that we see with the sun. And I like how Ryan took it to positive and negative, the cathode, the anode and the cathode to a battery.
yes, absolutely.
100%. 100%. And I mean, this even gets into like the sky clock.
But you
How
have
everything
to.
is so finely tuned, and how things move
Well,
around.
and at the same time, Christos, I think part of this mechanism, because if you think about it, you've got this positive, negative, right? And they're in a movement that's perpendicular to a negative and a positive. If you want to call it a dome or ionosphere or whatever you want to call it, the positive voltage at the top and the negative salt land bridge that we're on. It's really kind of like, and I think that the element Mercury has a lot to do with that too. I really do, because
Because it's thought. That's why.
It also is even the element Mercury, because the highest concentrations of cinnabar, which is the ore that you get mercury from, they also used to make the paint vermilion from it. They'd use it to paint the sash on St. Christopher. There's a whole allegory about the element mercury in there. But the idea that is the highest concentrations of it are around the Arctic Circle. And it's like it goes right along with what my theory of this thing being a big, huge, working like a Tesla coil on the physical level, kind of working like a Tesla coil, that this mercury is what exacerbates the current. It's what excites the current. Because in the allegory of St. Christopher, that's what happened. When the mercury, along with gold, entered into the river, the current became strong, a huge torrent. And there's the thing right there, the sun, the Christ, with the mercury, St. Christopher, he who bears Christ. And when he got into the river carrying the Christ, which represented by gold, that amalgamation of the gold and the mercury caused the current to increase in strength and size. So there's some interesting shit on a physical level.
The true
Wow.
meaning of those allegories is mental or spiritual transmutation. Mercury represents thought. It's only through thought and meditation and contemplation can you achieve higher understandings of yourself and of nature, right? Nature in every respect, the nature of other people, everything. So you have, if you're to look at the chain of existence, essentially the way things it works dynamically. Your conscious mind enters into your subconscious, which enters into the unconscious, which co-creates, and the unconscious also enters into the subconscious, which enters into the conscious mind and causes you to physically create, right? And that's what the triune sort of God relates to. That's why it's always a trinity in every pantheon. It's primarily a trinity. Horus, Isis, Osiris, Isis, Horus. You got Tammuz, and I forget the chick's name, like something I forget the fucking name, but anyways, you always have the Trinity, the masculine, the feminine, and then the creation, the amalgamation of the two, which represents balance. And that's essentially what, like, so when you look in the Bible, the water, so the darkness, that God created darkness and the light simultaneously, right? You look at the interdimensional manifestation of this anode and cathode that we're talking about. You look at the interdimensional manifestation of it. It manifests in morality, right, as drawing away emotions, right, and energizing emotions. And it's the interplay on a higher dimensional level, right? Thoughts, negative and positive thoughts, right? You kind of see what I'm saying by the so when you look at
here's the thing that I wonder about that too, and as you get into that aspect, it's like, okay, so we know that during a full moon, violent crime rates go up, emergency rooms get more busy. There's a whole bunch of, I mean, it seems to have a negative effect on a lot of people. Now, some people aren't affected at all, and if they are, they don't really realize it. But like myself, I can feel my aggression levels start to go up when it's getting into a full moon. And then again, even the old legends of lycanthropy, of the werewolf. What happens when the full light of the full moon, you know?
That's what's happening when you're getting too far out of balance towards the masculine.
Thank you. I was just about to ask that. Does that have to do with the imbalance of the feminine masculine within oneself?
Exactly, it does. That's right.
Well, Ryan,
Nobody is.
Ryan, I'm a Leo, so when I love the sun on a regular basis, when the full moon comes around, peace.
Right. Hey guys, this is the music break. Just want to bring a little bit of ambiance to the show.
All right, give us a minute. That's what we're doing.
What the?
Okay, let us continue on the thought there, Joey Jones.
The sun is like the focal point of the planetary energies, right? So one could say it's ultimately what gives us our vital or etheric body, the light of consciousness, essentially, right? Which is, you know, the sentience, the ability to think, you know, whereas the moon creates the foundation for that to be possible. So like, and this is allegorically referred to in the Bible, where it says, you know, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the waters. So what does that tell you right there in this book of creation, right? It tells you that one, God created the darkness first, right? And secondly, that that feminine aspect of the polarity, the darkness, the unknown, is represented by water. Okay, so every time we're talking about water, right? And then, you know, and then God said, "Let there be light," and that's the light of consciousness. So that's telling you exactly the order in which you exist. You know what I mean? And so that light of consciousness.
We'll even look at the birthing, a pregnancy. You're in water, in the darkness for so long, and then you get pushed out, you get brought out into the light, but you're in darkness and you're in water for all that time, in that feminine energy, in your mother's womb and everything else. So that just makes perfect sense. I really hate to do this, but I really got to go. You guys are just absolutely wonderful. Ryan, it's so great to meet you.
Yes,
and nice you, Joe Jones. Nice to meet you, Joe Jones.
I was going to mention this earlier, that on a battlefield, when men are wounded and they're screaming in agony, do you know what the most common word screamed is?
Mommy.
Yeah, it's on all the movies.
Mother,
mommy. Well, you know what? You know what? When I was in basic and we couldn't have contact with anybody for several weeks, when you got your first phone call Everybody, we're standing at parade rest. Everybody's going only 2 minutes. 95%, and myself included, we called our moms. You have that one phone call and you hear people, mama, people were calling, mom. And so it's something that there's something to that. But thank you so much, Sovereign.
When I got in that car accident that almost killed me in 1986, at the same time as that accident happened, my mother woke up in bed in the middle of the night. And it was at the same time. And she goes, oh, well, after she found out what had happened and came and got me out of jail. Well, that explains why I woke up at that time. And I was like, that's really weird, man. But now and then I didn't put as much stock into it as I do now, because now as I understand frequency and vibration, as Joey Jones over here does, who used to be Joey Ramone until he got
a good example. So what else
well, much love, guys. I'm going to say bye-bye right now. Nice to see you guys, Eric, and you guys on this panel. Y'all have a wonderful night. And man, that's beautiful. Ryan, you are so knowledgeable. It's a great conversation. Everybody, Christos, even what you brought up, it was good. OTW, much love to you guys. Thank you so much, Sovereign.
Hold on, I got word. She's got eyes that appear to be the product of burgers and KFC. Every time she
love it. Thank you. I love it. Oh, y'all just lifted my spirit tonight. Oh my gosh. Much love to you guys, and y'all have a beautiful conversation. And Sovereign, your community is beautiful and wonderful, and I'm looking forward to listening and taking part in here. Thank you guys and everybody in the chat as well. Much love.
Hey, Joey, OTW, did you hear my lyrics for that? It said, she's got thighs that appear to be the product of burgers and KFC. And every time she tried to eat my pie, oh, sweet cellulite. Well, all right, so not to go off the rails here.
Sovereign, I gotta ask you about something after you say what you're gonna say.
Oh, that's good. I was just we're going to get back into our topic though.
So
well,
what else?
I'm gonna be heading out of here in a second, actually myself.
All right.
I'm gonna call my lady. But I just wanted to say this. I can't lie, I was a little surprised how you handled that situation, Sovereign, with that handicapped British kid coming onto your stream, man.
Why were you surprised I would react that way?
Well, I understood the initial confusion, but what I was more surprised by is the after the fact video, where you were calling the kid retarded and
well,
just
I said I don't know if he is
down.
retarded or whatever. In any case, I know that he would have never found my stream or my channel or any other thing had he not been sent over with the rest of the flying monkeys. Okay, I'm not going to discuss it anymore. That drama is not going to come over here. I handled it how I handled it, and that's how I feel about it. And if there are people that have problems with that, well, then so be it. I am not the one that sent people over to scream and cuss on my stream at me at the behest of some other fucking flake. I'm not going to tolerate it. I don't have to tolerate it. I think it was kind of funny because it was so obnoxious and stupid. I think that Paul should be ashamed of himself for even encouraging someone in that state to even do something like that. So that's not on me, and I'm not going to let it be on me. That's all I'm going to say. Oh my God, that's going back. That's going back. So anyway, Eric, what do you think on the OTW? What's your take?
All right, thanks, guys. I'll see you around.
See you later, man.
I mean, I pretty much put it how I'm supposed to. Now, I know that he was in contact with the other people right now that are streaming us, and that's why he wanted to get that in before he left. There you go. It's over. We've not had that drama here tonight. We're not going to have that drama here tonight. We're not going to have that drama here anymore at all. I've done my purge. I'm still in the process of doing the purge. Okay. Ian's done his purge. We're happy where we're at. So did you catch any earlier in the stream OTW on?
Oh, yeah, I've been watching for a while.
Yeah.
Mic check. How's it sound?
Yeah, it sounds pretty good, man.
You sound good, buddy. Thanks for the music, by the way.
Hey, I wanted to bring something to the audience. Honestly, I think it's about giving, and I felt like maybe I wanted to contribute something other than my opinion.
There you go. There you go. I'm with you. We got to get together and put some music on. I've been working on some shit. I've got Ultimate Guitar Tabs, a subscription to that, and I've been dicking around here and there. As I don't know, man, the last couple of weeks I haven't felt worth a shit, but I kind of persevered through a little bit of it the other day and was playing some stuff. It'd be fun to get together. I bought I don't know if you're familiar with another channel called Leducator, but I bought a Gretsch off of him.
I have a bass guitar Gretsch.
Oh, and this thing is
awesome
sweet.
Instruments, yeah.
Such a nice sound to it. It
does.
really does. But no, this influence that we seem to have, or this celestial luminary seems to have over us. I mean, as you can see, like in this picture that's in my background right here, you should not, if that is a solid thing, why am I seeing that star? That's an actual photograph. And it almost, Ryan, it puts me in mind of a symbol that we see quite often of a crescent moon with a star within the crescent. Isn't that an Islamic thing?
Yeah. So the star, some say that represents Venus, that's visible through the moon when it's at crescent, right? It's a goddess symbol, most definitely. But there again, when you start to look at what the moon ultimately represents, in some religions, the moon is represented as
No
a masculine
way.
deity. What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry, man. I was just reacting to the comment that Sovereign just put up without making any regards to what you were saying.
He was unaware that somebody had already been playing his videos on their show, that music show we do on Terry's stream on, what is it, Wednesday night, I think. Music Mayhem with Doc Danger. So he was kind of surprised somebody showed his. I got to re-upload mine. Shit. But go ahead, Ryan, as you were saying.
And in this aspect, the masculine aspect, like in Nordic mythologies, Mani, the moon god, Mani, coincidentally, all of our days are named after Nordic gods, except for Saturday, which is named after Saturn. You got Monday is Mani's day, which is the moon day, right?
Moon
and the moon also represents, in some respects, like Astarte, Baal, Moloch, the owl, the dark wisdom, the dark knowledge, the dark path, right? On its own. And the moon in its masculine aspect is like the god of storms. It's the destroyer, right? So essentially there's and moon is the daughter of Saturn. So by moon worship, they're also worshiping Saturn. It's the worship of the material world, essentially. So in all of these aspects, it represents the negative polarity, right? And its influence on us is primarily through our emotions. Like you said, you get more aggressive, right? So I believe the moon is interdimensional, in that throughout its cycle, it's phasing in to the world that's interwoven within this world that we cannot see.
So that would go along with that whole thing, like why it seems like a projection.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, it's almost like it dips into the sky. If you take a disc, I saw a guy on a video. He took a disc that was like the face of the moon, and he dipped it into this blue paint, and it made a crescent. The way he did it, like at an angle, it made like a crescent of that, and it looked exactly like how it does when you get a crescent moon. And I was like, this is kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Moon is actually,
wouldn't that other realm
Brian,
be
your name, right? Brian?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, you know, I actually really firmly believe that we're in a simulation. And you know what else? Watch this. I think that if we let go and we actually accept the fact that everything is scripted and it's a simulation, we would probably most likely enjoy the ride.
So what you're describing is actually the Buddhist concept of non-attachment, and that is the idea. The only way you can achieve non-attachment. So the Buddhists hold that the only way to achieve a state of unconditional love is through non-attachment, which people who don't understand that view that as kind of an oxymoron or a paradox. But it's not, because
George Lucas kind of did this with the whole Jedi as well. I mean, you had
it's based on Buddhism, yeah. So attachment is the drawing away, the negative polarity. Attachment is the desire, the pulling, the gratification of something. You become attached by allowing yourself to desire it. And so in order to conquer that, you have to master and practice self-discipline. Okay. So it's interesting. I was reading about Hinduism and the Dhammapada, I think it was. So there's a realm of consciousness. It was the other night when we were discussing the Atya from that, or the Loka, is what it was called, Loka, from the that declassified document. And I went ahead and read about the other realms of consciousness. And these are other dimensions, right? Well, one of them is governed by Satan, according to but in this representation, Satan represents self-discipline and self-mastery. And that by emulating those ideals of self-discipline and self-mastery, right, that you can basically achieve success and attain godhood. But the concept of attachment is based on the fact that when you are attached to something, you're ruled by fear, and your relationship to it is conditional because of that fear. So you are attached to something because of how it gratifies you, and you're attached to that gratification. So you have a fear of losing it. So therefore, say like in a relationship, if you're with somebody and you're insecure, you don't have that non-attachment, that actual love, unconditional, which is another way of saying non-attachment. That's our true state of being. And when you have that non-attachment, or if you don't have that non-attachment, then if the person fights with you or threatens to leave you, you react jealously and out of fear, because you're afraid of losing that gratification and that validation you receive from that person. That's the source of jealousy and the anger that comes from it, and sadness, depression, all of these things. However, if you can learn to accept the only constant in life, okay, you like OTW said, you accept that everything happens for a reason, according to a divine plan. Time only operates in this dimension. Time is a construct of the mind. It's a way to measure motion and give the consciousness the feeling of semblance of control over an unpredictable exterior world, right? So we're measuring motion. Time doesn't actually exist. And space honestly doesn't exist.
When you're saying motion, is it progressive or regressive, or can be, because most people, we live in a society that you're supposed to progress in motion.
It's actually neither, because like the Buddhists say, nothing actually moves. It is the mind that moves. Right.
They've conditioned us in this, upwardly mobile career sense, where I'm thinking, well, sometimes I can find a truth can live with it for a while, but then wait, that truth doesn't work anymore. So now I have to regress. But they've got everybody going.
The only truth,
one motion.
The only truth is that everything changes. And the only constant is you. Okay? That's the truth. Okay? You're the only one who's going with you when you die. Okay? And everything around you can change at any time. That's actually what creation is. That's why the I Ching is called the Book of Changes, because that's what manifestation in existence is the eternal present through which change is ever unfolding, right? It's the eternal now through which change is expressing itself. And
Exactly.
change is the oscillation between the two polarities, but it's all been designed. Okay, so once you get high enough dimensionally and get towards the all, the creator, you're outside of time and space, and everything exists simultaneously. So if you think about this, everything is an electromagnetic frequency, vibrational frequency, right? That's ultimately what matter is. And the only thing that creates the illusion of separation is the varying vibrational frequencies, right? So the air is vibrating much faster than the things that appear solid. So you can't see the air, you can feel it, but you can see the table, right? So just to put it simply, and since everything is an electromagnetic vibrational frequency, what is that frequency? It's a motion. It's an oscillation between the duality, the polarity, right? Just like all creation myths, or not myths, they're actually stories telling you. You just don't want to read them, but it's the oscillation between those two polarities is what creates these varying wavelengths. Now, if motion were to cease and say that the mind of God was to come to rest, everything would be one. Now, the amazing thing is, and here's the paradox in the ultimate divinity, is that this oneness I'm talking about is also nothing, because there's nothing to distinguish it from itself. So it just is and isn't simultaneously, because it is all, right? So this is where you hit that beyond our ability to conceive.
Well,
right?
actually, I just wanted to point out that it correlates directly to life and death, because if you think of it really in that kind of sense, when you die, everything else around you ceases to exist. But from on the outside looking in, everybody thinks that you're the one that ceases to exist.
Right.
But when you die, you're the only thing left in existence.
That's right. Yeah. So the only thing that goes with you, to whatever it is that happens to us afterwards.
So within this low vibrational frequency that we are in right now, which is comprised of a symphony that you interpret with 5 different sets of ears. In other words, we don't hear it. We sometimes hear parts of it. We see it. We feel it. We touch it. We taste it. We smell it. But it's all just one grand symphony. And outside of this decoding device that we're using, it's nothing more than, like Ryan said, a bunch of various electromagnetic fields, much like how the internet is it's going from one tower to another. It's in the air. It's just a bunch of data, ones and zeros, electromagnetic pulses at various frequencies that go into a machine and interpret it into a cohesive semi-reality that we can interact with. And it brings us where we can type over here in the chat and talk to each other and everything.
Well,
and do with this amazing thing. What do we do with that? We act like children. Yeah. I've had people ask me, what does this word mean? And they're asking me on one of the most advanced devices we've ever had, a chimera. Most people call it a phone, which has this interesting knack for being able to search the internet for definitions of words and meanings and things like that. Yet they'll choose to ask me what a word means and use the very device they could have asked what the word means to ask me. Now think about that. Don't interrupt my mind. I'm watching cat videos, man.
the concept itself is that, again, is right in the Bible. In John, where it says, "And the light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehendeth it not." We are that light, right? We are light wrapped in darkness. The darkness is the ego in the astral and material realm, right? The emotional, mental, spiritual filth wrapping this divine spark. Okay. So a way to identify this, and I know I've said it before, is basically if you have a song stuck in your head, right?
Okay.
And you're like, oh, I can't get this song stuck out of my head. You hear the song, but if it is your thoughts that are playing the song, what is it in your head that hears the thoughts? What is it that hears the song? That's that divine spark, and that's the great comedy of it. Is you've got these atheists running around going, God doesn't exist, while God is the very light that sparks their life and is observing their entire life through them. That's why God is watching, because God is watching through you. Okay, God is your conscience. God speaks to you.
That's what I've said. That's what I've said to people before. They said, I've never seen any evidence of God. I says, where are you looking? Have you only have an outward look? Do you only have an outward look? And how would you know if you found it?
Right. If that which you are seeking you cannot find within, you will never find without.
There you go, man. There you go.
Because my grandparents, they taught me that God lives up in the sky, and I've been on an airplane, so God don't exist. I figure how they did it. I mean, it's like, who invented that shit in the first place? There's a Satan underground, and you're going to hell, and God's up there in the clouds.
Well, it all stems from the heaven, the heavens, earth, and Sheol. That's all.
Yeah, they're talking about the human body and the ascension through the chakras. It's always the same. Always comes down back to the same story. All these stories link to that lower vibration when you're in their root chakra. All right.
Yeah.
And then it talks about the ascension going from one chakra to the other, all the way back up to the crown chakra. And you'll notice that these stories are either begin with sexuality, war, or whatever, and then they climb up to where it's a spiritual ascension or enlightenment with a big moral or something like that. Either in movies.
We are on Earth. We're in the Earth part of it, right? And what's an anagram of Earth? Heart.
Right.
The heart chakra. Right. That's what we're supposed to be resonating. And no wonder the world's in a fucking hell of a mess, right?
That's the microcosmic aspect of it. But everything is, again, holographic. So it's a microcosm inside of a macrocosm. And so like I said before, the number 5 is the microcosmic man. Well, we have 5 fingers and 5 toes on our hands, which we use to create and work with, and our feet and carry us around, right? The 2 primary faculties that we use constantly every day. So again, why do we have 2? Well, you actually have 10 fingers and 10 toes, right? Well, no, you have 5 on your right hand, 5 on your left hand, because one side represents the positive polarity, one side represents the negative polarity. So as you exist as a microcosm on the macrocosm, these forces exist in a divine sense that guide the playing out of this reality, right? The manifestation of this reality through their energy and influence that are beyond our comprehension. Okay, they exist outside of space-time as we conceive it. And there are forces on each side, just like in the Kabbalah, they show you the Sephiroth and then the Qliphoth. The Qliphoth is the tree of death, and it's the root system of the tree of life because it's the negative polarity. So each divine hierarchy of beings, which there are, and that's what these governments and stuff have been in contact with. As each of these hierarchies of beings manifest, they manifest like in a mirror image as well on the other side. Okay, so you have these legions of dark entities that are part of a necessary part of creation and are the drawing and pulling away aspect, the negative aspect of the polarity. And then you have the active energizing the positive polarity and everything that's associated with that, darkness and light, and the interplay between the two manifests reality. So that's why like these people, so it is microcosmic, it's the activating the chakras, but it's also macrocosmic of an actual battle playing out. At the end of the day, it's a great drama in theater being played out in the mind of Atum or Brahman, or God as we can conceive it. But for us here, it's very real, and the battle between these forces is taking place. And when these people go out into, and do what they do, worshiping whatever, there's a reason that they actually do this. So it's important to actually identify and see that as well.
I was just thinking about something that kind of goes along with this this feminine energy thing too. And this is a recent study I read about, had found that we've always been told that when life begins, it's because it's like the first sperm to reach the egg penetrates the egg, and there's some okay, that in itself is a miracle, how that even life begins like that, right? But what they found out in this study is that that's not the case. The egg chooses the sperm. It's not the first one that gets there. It chooses one. It'll reject others.
Interesting. I didn't know that, but it makes sense.
Yeah,
because it would operate intelligently as well.
Yeah. And that's like, wow, okay, that's kind of interesting, because, and there goes all those jokes. You mean out of 5 million of those little fuckers, you're the one that made it?
I'm the one that got picked.
Right. I was the one that got picked, man.
On a side note, I read this motivational book one time, and I had to admit it was so cheesy, but it was like the best motivational book. Like, I swear it was, because the way the guy put it, he says, do you feel like you're a loser? Are you down in the dumps and feel like you can't achieve anything and you're talentless and etc.? He's like, well, you need to realize that you're a winner. You're already a winner. He said, out of millions and millions and millions of your swimming tadpole brothers and sisters, you're the one who fucking made it. You're the one who got there. You're a fucking winner. Do you know the odds against your existence? Do you know how unlikely it was that out of all the millions and millions of sperm, it was that it was you that got picked?
What if it's going to happen again?
Well, see, this is something I thought was kind of a wild thing. I was thinking about this one night. I was sitting around smoking
the sky's going to open up. We're all going to be pulled through like we're in the
think
God's
about this.
stack,
You know how
and
they
only
talk-
one of us is going to make it.
You know how they take a yeah, right? We're all the little tadpoles, right? But think about this, like you go through and they say that, like, and when you die, you go through the this tunnel to this light and shit. What if when you come through that light, it's like you end up in a delivery room, and the reason you're fucking crying is because you're like you haven't lost.
Listen, I lean towards reincarnation, but I think that's what you don't want to do.
All right, I think it's a soul reclamation trap. I really do.
It's a crucible. I think it's Job. I think it's the book of Job. It's the crucible. It's the temperance of the soul. This is a reformatory. Why and how we got here, obviously, is known to higher beings than us. But it's a reformatory because I think you only get so many times through to get the lessons right. And so you can, that's where NPCs, you talk to people and they've got the fluoride stare and all that stuff. They're a younger soul. They're earlier in their cycles, right? And then this is actually Rosicrucian philosophy. If you read like the Rosicrucian Cosmos Conception by Max Heindel, was written in the 1800s. These souls go through cycles, and then the cycles go through cycles themselves. But I'm not going to get into all that. But you meet those younger souls, right? And you can tell that they just, and then other souls are born, and they're an old soul. Like, hey, this baby's been here before. Just picks up everything like it's right. Like,
I've sat somewhere where I see somebody that's world traveled, educated, worldly, and they're dumber than dirt. And then I meet some redneck that's 18 years old sitting in Alabama that just knows way more shit than The guy that's went the
got
hard.
a deeper grasp on the world, deeper grasp on life. I know. I see that too, Chuck.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, maybe they don't have a
Yeah.
great vocabulary, but there's something in the eyes. There's something there, and there's an
It's
age,
an old soul,
education difference.
Yeah, so they've been through already, you know. And I think you have only so many times through, right? That's why, you know, that would explain why some babies are born with, like, you know, prodigal talents. You know what I mean? Like, you got 3-year-olds master on the piano type thing. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's been here before. He's done this shit, you know? But I don't think you get, like, just unlimited retries. I think that eventually, you know, if you don't get it right, whatever you're supposed to learn, you know, each life has lessons that you're supposed to learn from. Essentially, that's ultimately the point of this creation, this specific dimension. And if you ever think about it throughout your life, it's always like a period of good times and then a hardship. And that hardship didn't end until you learned your fucking lesson and it changed you. You know, because we're all old enough. I'm 33. I'm probably the youngest of us, but we're all old enough to have been through these periods where our life has dramatically changed because of, you know, some dumb shit that we were doing and that we had to learn a lesson from. And that's what this whole life is. And then you have these younger people that don't learn these lessons. They're like stupid. They're incapable of it. And it's like they're not meant to. Ultimately, when you get through the entire series of cycles, you're supposed to come to the understanding and realization that you're supposed to seek the creator and understand your purpose for being here. You know, like Mark Twain said, he says the two most important days in a man's life are the day he was born and the day he figures out why. And that's the truth. You know, and ultimately everything that everybody's chasing, the material shit that they're miserable about, they're trying to fill a void inside that can only be filled with understanding of what we're doing here.
What a demented sick game. I'm gonna have to have a few words with the designer of this game because I think he's a couple of flaws, man.
Well,
you're the only ones who make it that way.
Here's how I think it works. Yeah, well, here's what I think it is, right? And it goes along this line. This isn't how the game's supposed to be. This isn't how it's supposed to be.
I think
it was decent. You know, because there was a more decent time, right? But it was more decent, and it's gotten to this because it's like some asshole hacked into the game with a cheat code and has made it unfun for everybody else.
It's
bad. God, I hope it wasn't me, man. God,
no,
I hope it wasn't me.
I'm talking about the adversary. I'm talking about the adversary, the nemesis, the Satan.
We're at the end of a reaping cycle. We're at the end of a reaping cycle is what's going on. That's what I'm explaining to you. This is the way it's designed. But towards the end, the destructive powers are given more ability to influence and control and do things. You see what I'm saying? And then everything is just.
Well, wait, Ryan. So there's a theory out there that they say, or some people will say that all the souls that have ever lived or that are in the are here right now, essentially.
I've heard that one before.
Well, yeah, and that's the whole
possible.
thing. After
that's
each, so there's 7 cycles of 7 cycles. 7 cycles of 7 cycles.
Yes, it's the 7th son of the 7th son. That's the same story. I don't know if you've seen the movie, but
it's between so it's 7 cycles of 7 cycles, and through the cycles represents spirit descending into matter until it reaches the lowest point of materiality, and then rising in vibration back up to reunite with the oneness, right? Throughout the cycles. And so we're witnessing, and there's several ancient of the most ancient cosmologies, like the Hinduism, and this is ultimately what like the Rosicrucian cosmos conception is about. Is it descends? The first one's like the Saturn period. The second one is I fucking forget the Sun period. Then the Moon period. Then the Earth period. Then it's supposed to be Venus, so on and so forth.
Then my wife's period.
Then the wife's period, of course. So, but inside of these cycles, each cycle, of course, goes through cycles, right? So they've got this thing all mapped out mathematically, and those cycles are obviously the beginning of the civilization, cycling all the way through its zenith, right? And then ending in its ultimate destruction due to a lack of morality and a great falling away. And then the soul reclamation reformatory idea, the ones that are useless, that don't get it, are basically cast off, and the other ones that show promise and potential are placed into the next simulation, just to kind of go with your
kind of like the wheat from the chaff, as
Yeah.
they say. There are others on this platform that mistakenly say the wheat from the tare. Just to correct the record, for those of you that don't know, the wheat from the chaff, it's when you smack the wheat and the husks come off of it. That's the chaff, and you get the grain from that, the germ. Okay.
Yeah, when they're
So,
talking about the wheat and the tares,
chaff,
is Sovereign. When they're talking about the wheat and the tares, they're talking about when there's weeds and in the
right, bundles of wheat are tares.
No.
But I
It's
wanted
like
to-
when they plant the seeds and the guy comes in the night and he plants the tares seeds, and then when they both grow, you have to separate them when they all grow to
Well,
maturity.
yeah. Tare is even like if you like on a scale, okay, the tare weight, okay, versus gross weight. Okay, gross weight is the whole package itself, but when you get tare weight, you subtract that. So, like if you're ever using a scale and you got something in a box, you put it on there with the box empty, and you zero the scale. Then you
Right.
put the stuff in the box, and then it tells you how much, and that takes away the tare weight. But I wanted to mention about the 7 cycle because it just hit me all of a sudden, and I wonder if there's a connection. Maybe let it run through the filter of the brain for whenever. But if I'm not mistaken, isn't it considered the 7th daughter of a 7th daughter is a witch? Isn't there some lore about that? I mean, have any of you ever heard about that? That the 7th daughter of a 7th daughter is a witch?
Not that I can remember.
Let me see if I can.
So there was actually
Maybe
I'm
an
reading
old
this
expression.
old book. I'm reading this old book on astrology that I downloaded. It's like from the 1800s. It's written in Old English, right? Or it might even be earlier in the 1800s. I have to look again. But anyways, yeah, that guy is part of a family that is they're court astrologers, and the 7th, like I think it was something like the 5th son of the 5th son, every second generation, another one of these gifted people are born into this guy's family. Like, and he's writing about it like it's some normal shit that like, and how they're employed by the fucking crown and shit, right? So people don't realize that astrology was was taken very seriously for quite some time and used by powerful people. And then, obviously through the superstitious Inquisition ages, it went underground and then resurfaced, actually, believe it or not, during the Gilded Age, when these corporate oligarchies were being built. These people gained access to this knowledge and understanding of how to master the self and the material world and use the planetary influences to their benefit. And that's why J.P. Morgan said what he said about millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do.
Mm-hmm.
They this is a very real science. So, but he said the 5th son of the 5th son. So there might be something to that with like maybe certain types of people like gypsies or something. Who knows, right? There's probably something.
So what's the purpose of occulting stuff?
What's the purpose of what?
Occulting things.
Occulting things, because people who aren't ready for the information might abuse it, and actually usually do abuse it. And that's actually a huge instance of what's happening, like with all these greedy corporate CEOs having access to this knowledge.
So what you're saying is occulting something in and of itself is not necessarily, maybe it's a good thing.
Yeah,
it's okay. Well, I just wanted to
It just means that it's hidden. It's just
take
means
like
we
take
know
like
what it means.
bomb making. Take like bomb making, for instance, right?
Right.
If they just made it readily available for anybody to learn how to be a fucking master bomb maker, right? Just for instance, that's kind of the same concept, you know. But again, this is even more dangerous because it can be used on a mass scale, as it is being used, to manipulate entire nations as it is being used. So that was the original intention behind culting the knowledge. Culting the knowledge. That's why authors wrote in blinds. And plus, there's also like spiritual repercussions for giving away secrets that aren't meant to be given away. But you know, put whatever stock in that you want. I personally think that is 100% the case. I know it is, but I could never convince somebody else of that. But you can't just give shit away like that. That's why even Jesus taught, do not cast pearls before swine, because people have to in order to come into this knowledge on their own, they have to go through necessary experiments or experiences to get to that point. And those experiences prepare them for that knowledge. That's why that knowledge is given to them when it's given to them. And that's why also you cannot just give it away. And there are actually repercussions.
It's funny you're saying that, because I've been reading a book that's also been mentioning the fact that the ones that come into the knowledge without proper schooling are always end up being either learning for themselves or being told by another person that's already been through that process to keep silent, to keep this information, because it's not for everyone and not everybody understands it. And people must, like, I think there's a process. People have to be prepared to this, and it's like there's a school to this, you know. In ancient history,
you don't buy
when they go back really far, Sovereign, you'll notice that to enter these mystery schools, you had to be a master of astrology, theology, and what was the other one? Oh God, what was it? It was astrology, theology, and
alchemy.
Alchemy. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you had to be a master in these things. So, and then you could enter the mystery schools and evolve through their teachings and become a grandmaster, I imagine.
Well, it's simple. A simple way that I would put it is like my little granddaughter Alexis. She's coming up on she's a year old now, right?
So she will be on the 22nd.
The 22nd, she'll be a year old. And so as a birthday gift, I didn't get her a set of Ginsu knives. Why?
Oh,
is it because
it was numerology?
Is it because
numerology? Numerology is another massively important science.
Is it because
completely intertwined with astrology? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Never mind.
Sorry, Sovereign.
Yeah. The knives.
Yeah. So is my reasoning of not giving those knives to my granddaughter for a birthday gift based on the fact that because it's a bad gift? No, it's a great gift, man. It's cut through a can. You've seen it on TV, right? But it's not for a 1-year-old because they'll hurt themselves or others with it.
Exactly.
There you go. So until she's got herself some mind about her about what these things do, then she can be introduced to these things. It's the same thing. Even though people are in adult bodies doesn't mean they have adult minds or a progressed mind. They're just big meat sacks that happen to think.
Right.
And that's actually exactly right. So if you were to try to teach somebody, and I'm just going to use this as an example because it's one that can be used. So take polarity, for instance. You try to teach somebody the concept of polarity and duality and how it is actually an illusion. It's what composes the Maya, the world of illusion, or the sea of illusion, right? Governed by Neptune, just on a side note, right? So, but the
again from the sea,
the duality, right? You explain that they don't actually exist because they're only defined by one another. What is day? Well, it's everything that night isn't, right? And what is nighttime? Well, it's the opposite of day, right? So they must necessarily each contain an aspect of each other within themselves, right? In order to be, what do they share in common? Light, okay? So we're light in various effects, physiological, energetic, astral effects, all the above, right? But they are not, they're only defined by one another, and one cannot exist without the other. So you can't have day without night. You cannot have night without day, because if one didn't exist, you wouldn't identify it. It would just be the whatever it is, the now, right? Or the, you couldn't call it anything. So same thing with heat and cold. Heat, something hot can be described as less cold. Something cold can be described as less hot, and it's still accurate, because opposites don't actually exist. But you explain this to somebody who's not ready for this information, they can take it to the moral realm and ignorantly interpret that as good and evil are just moral perceptions, you know what I mean, moral constructs, and don't actually have an objective existence. So I can do whatever I want without repercussion. And you see how that can be dangerous. So once they could take that information and misinterpret it because they were told that by somebody they viewed as intelligent, or felt like they knew what they were talking about, they somewhat understood it but didn't quite get it because they didn't earn it. And now it's a dangerous thought that's going to spawn darkness in this person. It'll create darkness. You have damaged somebody.
Right.
Take a zealous Christian, right? That's their path. They've come to God. God looks out for them. God takes care of them. You can see God taking care of them, right? And they're ultra zealous, and they won't listen to any kind of understanding of the higher natures of things.
Such as, so what's the ultimate message here, where you got these people that are drag queen story hour, oh my god, and this trans, and listen, I'm not promoting it, but there's something deeper going on here.
Oh, definitely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Look, it's about corrupting the minds of the children. It is better to have a millstone tied around your neck and throw to the greatest depths than to harm any of the little ones. And that's what they're doing. This is what they're doing, and they're doing it under the guise of "don't oppress me." We see the same thing when they talk about certain events that may or may not have taken place in Europe between 1934 and 1944, and where the people in Germany are accused of book burning. Yes, they did. They burned books. What books did they burn? They burnt the pornography. They burnt the My Two Daddies books. They burnt the Everybody's a Tranny book. They burnt the fucking ethnic race theory, or whatever the shit, critical race theory books. That's what they burned. Okay. So you got to be careful, because then they turn it around. Like, certain people will take an innocuous thing like that. Like I was asked earlier, do you think you handled that kid correctly on your show? And yes, I do. Okay. That kind of thing. That there were people that tried to turn that around, that I was a mean son of a bitch that exploited people with difficulties, even up to and including, because I went to the Dwarfinators fight, that I exploit dwarfs. And I'm thinking, man, those people made $40 for ringside seats. And
You're
that
an awful person, dude. It's okay.
That makes me an awful person. That's how those people are making their living. Whatever they're doing, it was entertainment. They like doing it. What the fuck's the problem, right? But anyway,
you gotta own
it's a way to sow a personality into some kind of shit. See, and you got to be careful with that. You got to be real careful. So that's like, you get asked those kinds of things, and people get upset when you give them the truth. And the reality is that truth doesn't give a flying fuck about your feelings, man.
See, and you got to think about the added effect of hiding this true understanding of who and what we are. If that plays a major role in it, because the hermaphrodite is a gross misrepresentation of what the ancient wisdom is. It's a gross perversion of it. That's not what it's meant. It's not meant to physically mutilate yourself, right? Or to engage in delusion and mental illness, which is just my opinion, doesn't reflect the opinion of this channel. But so now when you start talking about connecting with the feminine side of your psyche, right? That
Mhm.
aspect of your subconscious, and creating a balance between the masculine ego and the feminine subconscious, you're going to immediately repulse these individuals because they're immediately, like your conservative Christian. I
Right.
100% believe and know. I don't just believe. I know the Bible is the inspired word of God. But you have to understand the language of symbols to read it properly. And once you do, it's like, wow, on every level, that's such a perfect work, both literally and figuratively and symbolically. Is it a perfect work, right? In a perfect collection. But now, if you try to explain this to a Christian, they're going to immediately be like, oh, you're a devil worshiper or something, or you're trying to mislead me. You're a false prophet, whatever. And they're going to freak out. And then if you do somehow convince this person to listen and hear you out, and you do get them to see what you're trying to illustrate for them, now, because of their already superstitious foundation on it, it has a huge possibility of corrupting them, right? Because now they can only see everything in a dichotomy.
You probably did more harm
instead of a balance. Darkness has its necessary uses. We're not meant to be dark, and we should not engage in darkness, because darkness, the negative polarity, serves its own end. That's how people learn the hard lessons in life. That's what it's all about, right? Is that the desire, the uncontrolled desire in making mistakes that cause us harm, and then we learn from them, right? So darkness has its place, but evil serves its own end. And karma
without darkness, there can be no light.
Exactly. And each contain an aspect of the other. So if you're to think about God, and Christians and everybody agree that ultimately God is within everything, everywhere, at all times. Omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent, right? If that was the case, nothing can exist outside of God. So then when you enter that dichotomy of God and the devil, right? The devil can't exist outside of God. The devil has to exist within God, if we are to consider God God.
Right.
So
otherwise, there goes that all one.
So when you interpret the Bible, right, basically Satan is the judge, and Satan is the tempter, and but Satan never operates without permission from God. And the personification of these forces. Do you see what I mean? So those agents of darkness never operate without God's permission. God has to allow it to happen. Why is it allowed to happen? Because it's necessary. It's necessary. If you go, and there's a story in the Kabbalah about Satan requesting to go tempt a rich man. So God gives him permission. He goes and disguises himself as a beggar to see if this rich man will let him into the banquet, right? So that's an opportunity to test that rich man's soul, see if he's wealthy or worthy of the blessings he's received, and see if he's a generous, good person, if he's on path, if his soul's evolution is progressing properly, if you will. And if he doesn't let him in, then he's obviously punished. That's the whole idea behind the polarity. It's necessary, right? There's never going to be an ultimate end of the negative polarity, because if there was, then there's an end of creation. You can't have it. It does not exist.
I think it was interesting. I forget who it was that put it up. It might have been you, Ryan. The idea that, if you think about it, in these various Shakespearean plays and writings, we have these characters, right? We have Romeo, we have Juliet, we have Othello, we have Hamlet. We have all these various characters, and they all have their various personalities and their roles in a society that is purely fictional and only exists within the mind of the man William Shakespeare.
Exactly.
You see,
mentalism.
Right. So it's kind of the same with us. We are here because we are in the mind of God.
We're individual manifestation of the same divine source. And that's why, like what they say, when you hurt others, you're hurting yourself. Whatever you're looking for, you have to find within yourself before you'll find it outside of yourself. Because all we're doing is projecting and reflecting one another, because we're ultimately all the same.
Which is kind of silly that if you think about it along those lines, Ryan, because it would be like the guy that wrote the Three Musketeers. It'd be like him having a sword duel with himself.
Well, it is what it is. Like the Hindus teach that we're all in the mind of Brahman, who's contemplating himself for his own entertainment, essentially.
Okay.
And that's like the divine comedy. You know what I mean?
Hey,
So
before we get too far off on that, though, I wanted to touch on one more thing that I did. It always just seemed like a connection to me, and it doesn't, and not because of the tide, but because that somehow that the moon and the oceans seem to have a connection, and as far as like our existence here,
what
and
does?
the sea and the moon.
Yeah, the
It
moon
goes back. It
represents
goes
the
back
sea.
to what
Think about
Sonny
this.
said.
When
That
an
you're in the mother.
when an airplane or a ship crashes at sea, what do they always say? Went down with so many souls. They don't say so many dead. They don't say a certain amount. They'll either say lost or went down. Especially in the older days, they would say the ship went down with 58 souls aboard.
One would say that ultimately matter is water, ultimately. Okay. And if you look at the similarity between the two words, right? Not only that, but if you read the Bible again, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and it said the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the water. So that tells you that the darkness was the water. The darkness represents matter esoterically. So matter is represented by water. Okay. Yeah. So now when we look at who
think about it,
governs,
just phonetically in your mind, water, matter, it's got the same almost vibration to it,
Exactly. Now, once you're looking at that, we look esoterically. Who governs the sea? Neptune. Neptune has the pitchfork. They leave you clues all the time. The devil has a pitchfork, right? So it's the waters, the matter, right? And so now even the aether is a form of water. It's a higher spiritual. It's a higher vibrational frequency, but it's a form of fluid water. So it's considered water, separating the waters from the waters. And one aspect, the firmament, is flesh and matter, separating the waters from the waters, right? The spiritual waters. And the waters inside of you, separated from the spiritual etheric waters outside of you. And then furthermore, it relates to the moon because the moon represents the emotions and the dark, murky subconscious and the unconscious. You know what I mean? Behavior connected ultimately to the unconscious, which is represented by a sea. So if you think about the ego as a berg sticking up above the sea, the subconscious is the sea. The thoughts are essentially the wind or the air. And depending on the pressure system and the current of the air, the sea can either be calm and still and peaceful, or it can be a roaring tempest, right? A massive storm. It represents your emotions. It's the same thing. Your thought is the air, depending on if the thoughts are calm and still, or if they're raging, right? If they're ravaging winds, your thoughts are ravaging winds filled with aggression and fury, then your emotions become a tempest, just like the ocean. It's all just a microcosmic, macrocosmic relationship. You have to look at yourself and the symbolism of what represents what within you to identify it in nature and understand creation.
Interesting. I was watching this thing with this guy that worked down at McMurdo. And he was like one of their maintenance guys or worked he wasn't a scientist. He was there as like support crew. And after getting to know some of the people and stuff, he'd hear about what they were talking about and shit. And of course, when National Geographic would come down, they were studying ice. But he was talking about that what they were really studying is this shit they were calling sky ice. And this shit was blue. And they were finding it in this area, like deep in the ice, out about further inland, right? And this shit was the same. They call it sky ice because it's like the same color as the sky. And the crazy thing about it, they had to hold it with they had to hold it with like special gloves or tongs because it would freeze your skin. And then when it was exposed to temperature, it would melt, but it just went away. There was no liquid left. There was no gas coming off of it or anything. It just disappeared into nothing. And I think that's really interesting, man. What the hell? They have to study it there because it's so cold. And this is why I say I think this whole thing is like connected with the ocean, especially in the moon. And you remember that thing I said? Did you look at that thing from Admiral Byrd thing? You have to read the closed caption.
No,
PW, I sent that to you too. The thing was, Byrd said this place where he got, it was time and space were like irrelevant. And that he apparently came across someone who had died like 8 years earlier. And it was just, some really freaky shit going on down there. But I think that there's like this other dimension, and that's like where they talk about God sits above the earth, above the firmament. That I think that firmament, perhaps sky ice, who knows what the hell it's made out of, there's something there. But that the waters above, that's the one plane of heaven. And then there's another above that. You know what I'm saying? And likewise, just as many like below. So I think that there's like several, well, not several, but at least a few levels of ascension that we're supposed to attain. And along that line, perhaps we come from a lower realm, and this is an ascension for us. And we're trying to get to the next ascension. You see? I've theorized that perhaps the way we're here right now was an ascension from a lower plane, that we made it to this level.
We're in the waters right now. That's why everything is maritime law. That's why everything is all. That's why you have Dogon, the fish god, and the Pope wearing a mitre hat. Everything is water. Matter is water. That's ultimately what it is. And the fire of life and spirit impregnates the water and manifests form, right? In creation.
Yeah, even Jesus is, it's the fish god. He's the Pisces, the Vesica Pisces, and
Actually, I forget what it was, but there's something you can do with with the letter of his name in every language and put it together, and it's in Greek, and it's the Greek word for fish, which was interesting.
Let me just, it's something I just came up with, and it goes right back to what we were talking about, like how you were saying it's interesting that the Hebrew calendar and these others are all based off of lunar, the Chinese, right? And that's the feminine thing, right? Okay, so we're on a Gregorian calendar, right? Which was brought to us by the Catholic Church, right? Okay. And I was just thinking, I've been thinking this recently too. Owen Benjamin did a whole fucking show on it. It was hilarious as hell. It's like, why is the Catholic Church so obsessed with dicks, right? All over, painted inside the Vatican, man. There's just dicks everywhere, man. And they got the phallus out in the front of the place. And I'm like, oh, their whole thing is about the masculine. Their whole thing is about the sun, as opposed to the moon. That makes sense. Of course they'd have a bunch of dicks around in their church. It totally makes sense to me now. Because it's there again, the representation of the masculine. Because after all, that's what they've got. You got to admit.
It's
it's
sun worship. That's why they have that's what the obelisk is. It's the phallus of Osiris.
But I mean, even inside, everywhere you look, here's a picture of this dude, dong hanging out. Everywhere there's somebody's dong hanging out. It's like
all the cherubs everywhere.
That's what Owen says. He says, "Can you imagine what it was like? They were decorating it." So yeah, this place is pretty good. What should we do? And the guy's going,
dicks everywhere.
We need more dicks. We need more penises. In fact, we need little naked babies with their dicks out, blowing on trumpets. That won't be suggestive at all. I mean, it's like, he did this whole fucking bit on it. I was cracking up, because he's been kicked off YouTube a long time, man. But
I haven't watched Owen in a while, man.
Oh, Owen's funny as shit. He don't give a fuck who he pisses off because he's just funny. He is his song about where his bike gets stole. That's funny as hell. I can't even tell you the name of it on this fucking channel.
Well, you can't do that.
It's hilarious. But yeah, he does this whole bit on that, and I didn't mean to blow this back, but I was like, oh, there's right back to that feminine masculine and the differences in the cultures with their calendars. Even holy shit.
No,
there's all these dicks all over the place, man.
What's amazing is they've taken the secrets and divided them amongst the religions. That's the destroying of basically our history and knowledge and understanding of who we are. It's hidden amongst all the. So you have to find the common underlying symbolism and the meaning of it within all of the religions.
Wait. You mean one religion doesn't have a monopoly on truth yet? Is that what you're suggesting?
But so-and-so told me that was the one and only way.
Right. Yeah. No. No, that's they so yes, the obelisk represents the masculine polarity, and focusing too much on one or the other creates an imbalance. But generally, wherever you look at the obelisk, it's within a Vesica Pisces, which is representing balance. Now, it communicates a knowledge and understanding of the esoteric nature of man and nature itself. So, when you look at the common, one of the common themes amongst the oldest religions or systems of belief is that sound ultimately formed creation. So it was sound was projected into the inanimate matter, the feminine all, right? Whatever you want to call it. So originally, like most cosmology, since the highest we can conceive of is the unknowable, so say like the night sky, the black infinity is considered feminine because within it are all of the stars, right? It essentially gave birth to all of the stars, and it's the unknowable ultimate divine feminine referred to in Egyptian as Nuit, right? N-U-I-T, Nuit. And Aleister Crowley speaks.
What was it again? Say it again. Say that again. The what?
Nuit. N-U-I-T.
Knew it. Okay.
Yeah.
We are the knights who say knew it.
Knew it, right. So it's the ultimate unknowable, right? And then gave birth, and just like it says in the Bible, and God said, right? And God said, let there be light. If you look at the Vedas, the initial word of God is what, or Brahman is what spawned all of existence. And that word is Sanskrit Om, A-U-M, Om, right? And when you talk about electricity, we refer to it in ohms. That's why. You see what I mean?
Kokopelli from the Navajo. He played his flute and brought the universe into existence. There again, vibration and sound. Same story.
Yeah. And then in John chapter 1, verse 1, in the beginning there was the Word. The Word was God, the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Right? So this tells you about the true power. That's how we're made in the image of God. We can take our thoughts, look at what has been built just by communication of thoughts, being able to speak to each other and communicate reciprocally with words. Right, whether written or orally. Look at the empires that have been built, the divisions of kingdoms,
and look at the de-evolution of that as so has the language. The language has devolved, thought has devolved, and so has everything that we make. Look at our cities and shit compared to those cities of the old world.
Absolutely. So there's been a monopolization of this knowledge and understanding. It's almost like the common person. So if we actually go with the Tartarian theory and say that and assume that it is the case and that there was an ultra advanced civilization just several hundred years ago that had all of this understanding that we're talking about and beyond, then it would seem that the common person had an understanding of that esoteric nature of not only themselves but the world around them. And then something happened and that knowledge survived, right? But for whatever reason has only remained in the hands of certain people who pass it down from one generation to the next.
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about mystery schools. I'm talking about like monasteries and these people who actually achieve enlightenment are capable of doing these miraculous feats of mastering the material world, like firewalkers and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Or the various yogis that we read about that were circulating around the early 1900s that could perform these various physical feats.
I saw one, he went into deep meditation and he had this dude put a Bosch drill with a 3/4 inch bit on that thing right up to to his temple and try to drill into his head. It didn't even, there was just like a little slight red mark left on his thing. Didn't do shit.
It's almost like we descended in frequency in general.
Yes.
And that people were not capable of understanding the knowledge. So there's something that kept it safe and then re-released it when the time was right.
Is that what some people are talking about? This quote unquote AI that's not sitting in a farmer, a server farm, that this AI is, dare I say, something from outer space or what, interdimensional that's here and it's been here.
Oh yeah, interdimensional.
I considered that too.
CERN
created the recent Bing AI flipped shit on him. I saw something come across my newsfeed about it.
CERN created the World Wide Web. CERN invented the World Wide Web. www. was invented by CERN.
It wasn't Al Gore?
And it was called the World Wide Web, like the interconnection of everything, right? Like everything's gonna be stuck in a web. And and that is their stated purpose, is to achieve some sort of interdimensional contact, right? Whether it be they send something through or something comes through to our side. That's what the head physicist at CERN has openly stated. So
that means that Al Gore is CERN.
It's very well possible.
He's a robot from there. That's why he said he invented the internet. It's because he's a robot that was made at CERN. I was convinced. I was like, I'd watch that fucking guy on TV and I go, dude, blink. Just blink once for me, please. I was convinced he was a robot, man.
Yep. Yeah, somebody said CERN is underground, NASA's fake as fuck. Yes, it is. And CERN is the real, you could call it the real NASA, because that's the real frontier where there's higher intelligences and you can actually, you know what I mean, leave this realm.
Those other dimensions, those other dimensional areas. That's what well, it's not much different. I don't think what they're trying to do there is much different than what they were doing with, like, in the story of the Tower of Babel.
Right, exactly.
You know, they're trying to escape this earthly realm and get to heaven.
Maybe the last time they tried to go up, and now they're going underground and horizontal. You know what I'm saying? So they tried the first time to go up on the surface. Now they're makes sense. Like some group of people want to get out of here.
That area where that's built at, Eric, is even from back in Celtic times, was a sacred area known to be a portal to the underworld. And I mean, going way back. So this is, is it just coincidence that's where they decide to build this thing at? I don't think so.
No, absolutely. It's interesting. There's definitely power, inherent power where they've built this interdimensional gateway without question. There's actually that power, that interdimensional power where the pyramids are placed, the real pyramids. And, you know, basically even under the Bermuda Triangle, there's supposedly one of these pyramids in this energetic type of center. These ritual sites were always at these intersections of ley lines that created like the possibility of generating an interdimensional rift and creating contact with the other dimensions. But look, guys, I got to get out of here because I got to go to bed. It's fucking late as shit. So you guys are night owls. You have a kick-ass
Not
night.
me. Not
All
me.
right. Well, one more thing before you go. Another component that I've noticed that the pyramids all around the world, not only are they like in alignment with Orion, right? There's also a river. There's always a river. We got the Nile, we got the Amazon, all these different rivers, right? But there's also tunnels of water that run beneath these things. And water is very important. Water carries information, it carries vibration, it can amplify vibration. So I think that that's one of the important aspects to this too. And if you look, water's a key component, and there's hints to it at the Coral Castle in Homestead, Florida. That little dude, he was like 5'5", and he built this thing all by himself. There's some hints there that talk about water. And I think water's a component, definitely.
Yeah, water's conductive and definitely carries frequency well, so it wouldn't be surprising. But all right, I'm gonna go. You guys have a kick-ass night. All right, thanks for having me on. Sorry.
Peace, man.
Yep, go a little bit longer, and then we'll get off here myself too. So
yeah, I'm gonna go, man. Too. It was good. I'm dead.
Yeah, listen, we managed to we've handled things really well here tonight. I think that there were a few attempts to perhaps derail, and we took care of those. And I think overall it was a pretty good stream. I told Sunkist that we would talk about this subject tonight. That was something that she wanted to talk about a little bit more and expand upon, and I think we covered that. I think it was pretty informative for most of the people that were watching. And what do you think, OTW? What are your thoughts on this whole thing?
I think it was a great stream. Very, as long as we're talking about ideas and not about other people, I think streams are always going to be about building and discovering ourselves together and discovering new knowledge that no one knows about. And like I was saying on previous streams, we're not truthers necessarily. I see us more like investigative reporters, right? So we research, right? Bring the information and retransmit that information out there, right? It's up to the people to research whether it's true or not. It's not our prerogative necessarily. Obviously, our goal is to bring as much truthful information as possible, right? But I mean, there to say to people, well, this is the absolute truth is all depends on the perceiver, right?
Right.
So it's just the way people misconstrue things. And I think, once they start realizing that, we're just guys who like to follow our passion and just like to research stuff and share that information with the world. I mean, if we're up here and we're out like in the world like this, it's because we just want to,
it's like I look at it like this, OTW. I know some stuff about this. You know some stuff about this. Eric knows some stuff about this, and Ryan knows some stuff about this. Now, let's bring all the stuff we all know together in one place there, and we'll learn stuff that we didn't know. People out here that never heard any of this shit before will perhaps be interested and start looking into it. That is rather interesting that this luminary has always been associated with fertility, and this one with this and this one with this. Why is Mars the god of war? Why is Venus the goddess of lust? You have to wonder these things. Who decided that shit, and why did we accept it? And you start looking, and there's a little bit of meat still on the bones that you can find. It'll lead you to, oh, this is a bigger picture than I imagined. This is starting to make a little bit more sense. You see?
Yeah.
When I do cut this off here in just a minute, I want you to hang tight backstage after the broadcast.
It's what? It's really worth it, Sav. It's the aha moments. It's like, oh wow, yeah. And those are like those are the best moments.
I love that. I love it, and I love it when I see somebody get an aha moment when something I say put something together for them, and then they go boom, and they come with me with what they just came up with, and I'm like, oh shit, and that gives me an aha moment. It's like,
there you go.
Yeah, that's the way
No,
to do
OTW,
that.
I like what you said, that because this whole truther thing, I've always been kind of listen, I'm a dumbass. I'm just inquisitive. I'm exploratory by nature.
Right.
I'm a gypsy by nature. I don't know jack shit.
Well,
I never tell people that I know stuff, because I know that I know nothing. The only thing I really know for sure is death and the fact that we have to pay taxes. Besides that, I don't know fucking shit.
Just because you reword it don't mean you get to brand it now. Okay. So no, it's like that's the thing I'm glad Eric touched on. It's this idea of all right, I keep hearing this term thrown around, truther community. What in the fuck does that actually mean? Community? Is there dues? Is there a boss? Is there some leader? What the fuck are you talking about? Community? Okay, I can see that in the fact that people that get together and share ideas, but people start treating it like it's some kind of an organization. And then when you have something being an organization, next thing you know, you have certain guidelines that you must abide by. Otherwise, you're not part of the community or whatever. Right. It's like, fuck you. I don't need to be part of your community. I'm my own community. I associate with the community OTW News or Eric or whoever the fuck.
We are Wake TV. Yeah,
that's right.
We each have our own
TV,
communities,
anybody.
And it's about bringing those communities together in a sense where we can share between each community and have this like how can I explain this, like a unity, like together we stand and divided we fall. So it's better that we stand together than we fucking fight against each other, right? So it's obviously better to create content together and move forward in that direction than to just stay stagnant and friggin' arguing over nonsense and
people take this fucking YouTube thing just way too serious. Okay, let's just be real about it. They take it just way too serious, and in all reality, and it's I've watched other people do it. They get a few they get 1,000 subscribers or 2,000 or whatever amount, and all of a sudden they think now they're just something fucking to be reckoned with, and when you really look at it in the scheme of things, that's nothing,
Well, why do you think I came in rocking and rolling, dude?
Yeah, exactly. It's just,
dude, it's because it's about giving, man. It's about giving a show, man. It's about making people like have that moment at home where, whoa, what the fuck is going on? This guy's like just popped in with a guitar, man. He's like fucking rocking. It's like the idea was just to have, not to disrupt the stream, not at all. It was just to bring a different vibe and have something different than what we would usually see on a panel or something. I figured I'm into these new concept things. I'm into like trying new things and
I'll tell you, I see
not being one dimensional. So at first I was like, why is he interrupting it? But then I'm like, no, that's cool. I see, and I don't care. And it was good, It's like, so what?
Well, this whole thing, man. It's like we share these ideas, we expand upon them, and the whole point of my channel is listen, open up your mind, listen to some ideas, and come to something on your own. So unchain your mind. It's that simple. If you concrete yourself to a belief system, especially when you're younger, but at any time throughout life, if you've got yourself completely concretely chained to a belief system, you're not going to accept any more expansion upon that. Your leash is too short. So you got to break those chains so that you can expand your thinking. Even if some of that higher thinking disrupts some of the shit you learned before, because you go, oh, okay, well, we take this ingredient out, man. Now what do we got? And there's times when you just got to go back and say, okay, I'm going to start back again and see where I get at, and reevaluate. And if you're not reevaluating, well, you're not growing. And that's, and that's your business. If you don't want to grow, that's fine. I would rather have the people I have that are here that I haven't had to purge, as few as they may be, which isn't too bad, but as few as they may be, let me see, what do I even got watching?
Well, it's not about the quantity. The way I see it, it's more about the quality.
32. I've got twice as many as someone who's restreaming me right now. Okay, which still isn't very much, but still, I have open-minded people that will take the ideas and they'll either go or they'll go hey, and that's all it is. You know, I'm not ever trying to convince anybody of any one particular thing or another. I'm merely presenting my ideas, my theories, and what I do know. You know, and that's you're free to take it. You're free to go, no, I'm not interested. Whatever you want to be with it. Hopefully you'll come back and even come on the panel and expand upon your ideas with us. And that's what this is about, you know. There's a few I'd like to talk to, you know. I've had other people, I've had them come up backstage and I just don't even regard them because they don't have anything to add to the conversation. I already know that, you know. So
yeah.
With that, I'm just gonna say good night to everybody.
Hey, wait. I'm gonna end it with a song, dude.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Give me a second, man. Just set it up
All right.
real quick.
All right.
Yeah, it's always nice to end a stream with a cool song from OTW News, aka Joey Jones.
Yeah, no doubt, right?
No, that's not the song, guys.
Hey, I've heard that in several different movies. You know, I'm always picking with my wife, you know, just to irritate her. It's like she'll be watching, like she'd watch Hawaii 5-0, right? And I just tell her, I say, yeah, I wrote lyrics to that. And she's like, oh, right. And so the show comes on and I'm like, Hawaii 5-0, Hawaii 5-0, Hawaii 5-0, like that. And she's like, you're just dumb, right? Well, then I run across this video about how different show tunes are made, you know, for TV shows and shit. And it's no shit. Most of them are done that way. The guy's thinking the name of the show in his head and makes it into a song. That I was like, are you kidding me? Did you know that We Deserve a Break Today, that song jingle, was written by Barry Manilow?
Not surprised.
All right.
Great show, guys. I hope you guys enjoy this.
It's roboting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. So yeah, I want to thank everybody who came in tonight while this was playing. See, we had Welsh News Network. Good to see you, Dan. Let me see if I can pull this up. Dreamy Lynn, Escape Chains, FE Nation, Jonathan Montero, Just Somebody, Mike Smith, Truth Not Lies, and everybody else who came in and what is no longer here. We want to wish you guys a good tomorrow. Hope your week goes well, and we'll just go back and listen to this jam.